is the heart and soul of our sport, where these players strive to become who they're truly meant to be.
No more break, it's time for action. Welcome to Overwatch Contenders.
Hello and welcome everybody to today's second broadcast of the week. We get through the first one yesterday. Today we get to round out the week. We got a couple of good matches for you. Starting off with a banger. Mox, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good. I'm honestly really looking forward to this. I think we're going to see a little bit of movement away from the Winston in this first match, which I'm looking forward to it. I know you're probably looking forward to it too, because a lot of your matches in the NA side have just been Winston versus Winston. So come over here. We get the fun. We get the Rhine, the Symmetra, and SRP check. They're not even playing today. It's going to be different teams entirely.
Yeah, we've got plenty of good ones up. First up, Raspberry Racer versus Play. You alluded to a lack of Winston. Though we'll see just how much of that comes out within this match. Following that up is Ataraxia versus Team Peps. And I'll say, as far as standings go, the two matches we've got today are about as close as they can get. There's some deception to be had here with, I think, strength of these teams. Raspberry Racers, I think, still has a little something to hide. But if we do take a look at those standings, you'll see that, surprisingly, Play sits above Raspberry Racers. If you showed me those two rosters at the beginning of the season, never would I have thought that.
Yeah, but like you said, a lot of it is to do with the bracket, right? Raspberry Racers have had to go through all of the quote-unquote tough teams, and even then, they've actually done surprisingly well. They were able to take one map off Twisted Minds, one map off Ex Oblivione, one map off SR Peak Check. The only team where they got 0 and freed has actually been Oh Yeah, but we know that when you play up against Oh Yeah, you're going to come up against some certain shenanigans that you don't always have that scrim practice for, so it does make sense that that is the team where some of these teams do struggle somewhat slightly. For Raspberry Racers, however, it can only go up from here, but what we have to see from this team is a decisive victory to show the only reason they're so low down in the standings at the moment is purely because of all of the teams they've faced up against being so much stronger in the current climate.
Yeah, Play's very much had kind of the opposite schedule, right? They've played most of the teams that are on the lower end of the table right now, having gotten rid of almost all of them except for Raspberry Racers and one other team I think they have at the end of their schedule, but their opportunities are running few and far between, so if they want to get past that A spot, I think today's win is actually vital, critical to mission success at the end of the season should they want to keep things going on in the bracket. But that being said, let's go ahead and start breaking things down. Let's take a look at these teams, starting off with Raspberry Racers, a team that needs surprisingly no introduction despite their record not being the greatest right now. There's a lot of experience they're bringing to the table.
A lot of experience and also a lot of curving away from the meta. Both you and I were discussing literally before this broadcast went live whether or not we're going to get to see a repeat run back of the Jikaru Orisa that we got to see yesterday in their matchup against Ataraxia. Alexi and Cloud as well doing a very good job of being able to flex so that Alexi can play that Sojourn but also the Echo, and then Cloud can actually pick up whether it's the Tracer, whether it's the Echo. There's always a lot of really good versatility coming through from this DPS lineup, but looking at their opponent, I'm already predicting that we're going to be seeing the swerve away from the Winston. Play have two tanks. When they want to run dive, they have TVNT. When they want to run Reinhardt, they're on Groink, and that is the guy that is going to be starting off with this team so far.
Yeah, Groink brings a lot to the table with respect to the Reinhardt, but as well, we talked about just how much experience Raspberry Racers has. Play doesn't really come to the table with that much on this roster, but I will say one player who has almost more experience than the rest of the roster combined, Momentum. I mean, a player who has been around for ages now, brings a lot of seniority to this team. So I'm excited to see exactly what they can do when they rally behind them. When you talked to them last, right, Momentum was talking about how they wanted to form that consistency. Well, the days absolutely they do that. They've shown us consistently that they want to play this Reinhardt early on in the series. Groink will bring that to the table. That being said, I think there's a bit of a difficulty. We talked about the flexibility of the DPS line coming out from Raspberry Racers, but one player who hasn't been so flexible lately is Jikaru, right? Over in the stint in NA when he played with Whis, was playing exclusively Winston. Last week, we saw an Orisa that didn't do all that much, didn't really make much of a splash in the water, but up against a team that wants to play Reinhardt constantly, all of a sudden it sounds like a much larger problem to solve.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be one thing that Raspberry Racers are going to be aware of. However, we have got to see play on broadcast. They played Sheer Cold on broadcast on day 1, which is the first time that we actually got to see them debut into the contender scene, and that again goes back to the issue of consistency. Like you said, we got to talk to Momentum after the match, and he actually admitted that he's not really that used to playing Mercy for the team. It's literally just because Keo was being such a monster on the Ashe that the team decided, okay, he's hitting all of these shots, he's going to be able to carry us through this match, we're just going to pocket and put all of those resources onto him. And looking at the results for the team after those matches, consistency is definitely going to be something that this team needs to be able to build into if they want to be able to stick around the tier 2 scene, and it's definitely going to have to come into play on this first point of control because it's going to be Li Jiang, and that means that more than likely, especially if it's someone like Control Center, we're going to get to see Keo pick up that Symmetra, or potentially even Pac as well, who has been able to flex onto the sim when he played for Team Spain in the Overwatch World Cup conferences, and get Groink into these fights as quickly as possible so that he's not vulnerable and leaving the rest of the team hiding behind his shield before the Orisa can poke everyone down.
Yeah, well, that's the big question that everything revolves around, is do we actually see the Orisa? We saw a kind of conservation of the Orisa for a little bit, right? Playing it for 1 or 2 maps from Raspberry Racers previously, and then a concession saying, okay, you know what? This just isn't working for us. We have J-Karu. Why are we not just playing Winston? Go run it the rest of the series. Works out great. But now you have this question of, okay, now we've just kind of settled into the Winston. We've decided that it is working well for us, or at least it seems that that's what they settled on last week. It's a real toss-up for them to make this decision. Yes, in theory, it counters Groink, but on the other hand, they didn't see much success with it prior, so do they still want to go with it?
Yeah, it's always a real tough one too when you look at what else is going to be running alongside this Reinhardt, because a lot of the time when you have that Reinhardt, you obviously have the Baptiste and the Lucio as well, and that makes diving a lot harder if you don't have DPS to be able to back you up, something like a Tracer. But Cloud has been showing such promise on the Tracer, honestly. Like, looking at his performance yesterday up against Ataraxia, he was having some absolutely stellar pulse bomb attachments where he was literally going back-to-back pulse bomb sticks, and he would pick up double pulse bomb kills on the same 2 players twice in a row, which is such a huge feat, and a lot of it is going to revolve around pressuring that backline so that the Reinhardt doesn't have things like the Immortality field to allow him to be as aggressive as he wants.
Yeah, and when you're talking about that pop-off that Cloud has, right, you have to think about who else is here to pop off. You bring up Keo, yes, as being an inconsistent member, but one that is often there for play when they need him most. But I see a lot of those members on Raspberry Racers. Raspberry Racers has a whole litany of players that are capable of having not just consistent performances, but having those high points as well without really ever dipping too far. And that's what's scary is, you know, 1 out of 5 of these players starts going off. Any player from that DPS line, right? Alexi, Cloud starts going crazy. J-Karu breaks out the Primal Blade, and the match can really devolve, and one player alone often isn't enough to take that on. So it's not just the consistency that play needs, but they need multiple players to start hitting those peaks at the same time.
Yeah, and Drake as well, I feel like, is one of those players that we see in the tier 2 scene a lot of the time on things like the Ana really being able to land some vital sleep darts and anti-nades, but we never really talk about it a lot of the time, because if we're not talking about a support player, it means you're doing your job, right? You're not getting picked out early from a fight because you're in the wrong position. You're not throwing your ultimate in at an inopportune moment or using utility a little bit too early, which is the absolute death sentence of a support at the moment. That's literally why Tracer and Sombra are so prevalent. Part of the reason that they can just make their way into the backline and burn you out, throw you into such a horrible position where you either die with your utility intact, thus you don't do your job properly, or you throw your utility in because you've been bullied and you still lose the fight regardless because they just have better sustain at the end of the day and it's all been a big old bait.
Other way to start the backline dives. Let us know who you think is going to be taking away the victory today. 1 for Raspberry Racers, 2 for Play. Give us your opinions, your predictions, your favorite team. Honestly, don't care how you vote. As long as you vote, that's what's most important. We're starting things off here, though, on Control Center, which I think is kind of the dream start for Groink and crew.
It definitely feels like it, right? This is where the Rhine is going to be at its strongest, where you're going to be able to take these fights in generator rooms so that you have as little space as possible for these teams to be able to try and avoid the cleave. But then again, the problem becomes it's going to be pretty predictable whether Reinhardt wants to take the fight. If Raspberry Racers decide, okay, we're going to ignore side entirely and just go straight to point to be able to lengthen that distance and provide even more space to be able to try and poke Groink's shield down, Play are going to have a real tough time actually initiating into these engagements.
Raiders are showing no sign of an Orisa yet. Honestly, again, it's an if it ain't broke, don't fix it kind of situation for them. J-Karu's Winston is playable virtually everywhere with the experience that he brings to the table with this particular hero.
Alexi's going to be on the Hanzo though for that shield pressure.
That's a lot. I mean, we've seen teams Tekken and Echo, Tekken a Hanzo, specifically to bully Groink, right? And keep him at arm's length. That's the exact plan here. Alexi's staying very far back, away from any sort of teleporter shenanigans that Play could go for. Continues to chip away at the shield. Reinhardt. Too much we had until this point unlocks, though. Big anti-nade from Andraco, but he pays the price! Play teleport directly on top of him and punish the Ana. Taking advantage of the high ground. Now you've got a lot of players set up there as well. Reflect has a beautiful angle to take down the rest of this fight.
Yeah, and J-Karu, because he doesn't have that Ana sustain, just can't provide the space. And there's Alexi who has to try and go for a really big peak and unfortunately falls prey to Pack as a result. And Play, even though they all got antied and that immortality field got forced so early on, with that aggression, are just able to actually contain themselves on that point. And now Raspberry Racers have to set themselves into a dive on a backline that's already going to be defended.
Yeah, this is a difficult point to approach, right? To chip away at Groink's shield is no longer a consistent strategy. Lexi does get forced out, and Draco's able to pick up momentum on the back end of that as well. A failed teleport forward from Play as they come back a man short.
That's always going to be the risk. Like, you want to save that Lucio amp, and as a result, you just leave yourself too vulnerable when Groink's not there to shield.
Groink is here to shield, but honestly, not for long. That health bar does not look particularly well for wear. Lex is able to continue to pressure down this team bit by bit. This should be more than enough, especially with the nano being thrown in for Raspberry Racers to take the point over.
Oh, they almost get reflex. Haven't been able to now, but that pulse from kill onto Groink should seal the deal. It's just going to be a matter of stall with Play, but momentum goes down incredibly quickly, and now Raspberry Racers, especially with the Dragon Strike, can just look to try to hold on to this point as long as possible. They're going to be able to use the Hanzo ultimate to stall and zone out Pax Blizzard. They just have to not get caught out by the Shatter, and I love that they're separating themselves into two separate pockets, so if the Shatter does come down, half of the team's going to be able to peel.
Dragging out to start things here for Raspberry Racers. Attempt from Play to chase down Gustav, who gets away scot-free. 4 ultimates up, though, to try and force an engagement. Now they start with a sound barrier teleport play from Play, but they don't really cover too much distance. Groink's really swinging at air right now, and Raspberry Racers have disengaged a large part of it now. Can look to re-engage the fight with a Primal Rage. Play off the back of that. They force a Blizzard out. This has been 3 for 1 for Raspberry Racers. This is Black Friday deals they're getting right now, and not a kill has been found for Play until finally J-Karu topples over. But at what cost? Groink is traded out. Despite all the ultimates having been spent, Raspberry Racers are coming out ahead. If not, maybe even here. Play still has a little bit left in this one. They've ticked the point over, but the re-engage is a lot quicker because of J-Karu being on Winston.
Yeah, the rubber band is here from the dive. Clyde with the pulseman is one thing you have to watch out for.
Pulse bomb out. Groink getting pressured again. That earlier spawn from Raspberry Racers looks great for them, but the health bar needs time to reset, and Play seem to have found a moment to stabilize here, and as well build up a couple of those critical ultimates.
It's just a moment though. Andraco is boarding towards the nano, and this is when Raspberry Racers are actually going to push him with aggression.
They have a couple of movements, a couple of ways they can counterplay this. A solo shatter on a J-Karu is absolutely the answer. Putting the monkey into an early grave seems like a good one, but unfortunately, Groink is just taking far too much, and now slept in front of the amplification matrix. That's creating a real dip in the fight here for Play. Fortunately, Reflect has made something of that moment. Pack traded out as a Push goes onto the high ground. Play still looking for any sort of foothold in this fight, but it's just not to be had. They can't claim the space they need to actually get that Symmetra in and doing damage.
Yeah, but that is Dragon Strike burn out. Primal isn't there for J-Karu, and Draco doesn't have Nano Gustav, no Samurai for the same. Play just need to be able to tap themselves onto point, throw the Blizzard, find that flip, and then sustain through.
It's a long shot, but Cloud down it seems a lot less so. Blizzard out. Freeze onto the monkey. Play, flip it over. 97% quickly will turn into 100. There's not much Raspberry Racers can do. It wasn't even the ultimates that did it. That kill onto the Tracer was so critical in making sure that there was no answer from Raspberry Racers.
Yeah, when you're sitting around about 90% of point control and you have Soundbar when you know the other team doesn't, just use it to be able to get yourself aggressively onto that point. Because the problem was they were holding onto it for so long that every single time Raspberry Racers were able to land anything, just a stray shot from Alexi, an anti-nade from Andreiku, it just forced Play to have to wait for all of those cooldowns to come back online, and that's what Dive really does, punish hesitation, and allowed Raspberry Racers to start equalizing that point percentage pretty quickly. But Play seeing that opportunity, finally throw themselves onto point, throw the Blizzard in, zone Raspberry Racers out, and there's nothing they can do about it. As now we're going to head towards Gardens, and this is where the Reinhardt becomes a little bit less stable. You have to rely so much more on the Symmetra teleporter to be able to make sure that you don't get concussived off of this map with Clyde picking up the Pharah.
I mean, it's really uphill from here for the Reinhardt composition, right? They got the best map out of the way. They're going to have to dig one of these from the trenches should they want to win this map, but looking good for it so far. After having won the previous point, gotten a lot of percentage on the board early, looking to get more on with a pick onto Andreiku. Raspberry Racers are forced back, and this is what got Play that point cap last time, right? Got them all that early percentage. Looking at the stats, Play died almost 50% more on the first sub-map. But because they got that early advantage like they're getting now, they were able to take away that win.
Yeah, and they're taking away the Pharah poke too. Clyde may be pretty close to Barrage, but he hasn't been able to find a kill because of Symmetra teleporting everyone out.
The health bars are still low. Chipping away is Cloud. Always dangerous in the skies. A jump in from J-Karu. Cloud follows up with damage as well. They try to answer with a TP, but not everybody makes it through. Momentum gets the short end of the stick after a trade for Andreiku goes down. Raspberry Racers still successful though in their take of the point. The teleport was only good for one kill.
Raspberry Racers now are going to be able to have ultimates to be able to stall through, so even if Play try to go for these really quick teleports onto point to take as many fights as they possibly can, not just to be able to build ultimates up fast, but also to try and deny Raspberry Racers from being able to cycle through one fight ultimate at a time, as we're actually going to get to see a replay. There's the burden nade, making sure to lock down Andreiku so that Play can just run straight on the Ana.
I mean, Andreiku is the primary target of Play. Not many other players are even teleportable in terms of targeting. An Ana boost though with an overclock spells the death of Keo basically instantly. Alexi's making quick work of this one. Raspberry Racers, they pressed over 40% on the point.
Oh, that is devastating for Play. They overlap both support ultimates, though.
Ouch. Oh.
So,
Yeah, we thought it was bad already, but that makes it really ugly.
yeah, that is absolutely 100% worth it for Raspberry Racers because you're still in control of the point. You know that Play are going to have to teleport. You know that there's going to be a Deadeye, but you can just position to be able to take the Cassidy down so quickly now that he's lacking that extra 25. As they're going bridge.
I feel like they feel the pressure they're putting on Cloud and they want to take advantage of it, but they are just waiting for that TP to come online. A lot of ultimates up for Raspberry Racers. How do you even respond to this, right? A Deadeye, a Photon Barrier, your only recourse. Meanwhile, a Barrage comes out from the sky. A Primal Rage is still up for Raspberry Racers. Few ways really into this fight for Play, unless they could maybe burn J-Karu down early in this fight. Symmetra gone, though. Spells the death of this push. Raspberry Racers now at 90%, our final fight territory, maybe even beyond that.
They did manage to find Cloud. Groink still alive with the Fire Strike. Actually finds Andreiku.
Oh my goodness!
Play, because they can rubber band so quickly back in, can actually find the flip. And Raspberry Racers have actually been forced off of the Pharah onto the Tracer, but now seeing that they've lost the fight, that they're not going to be able to stall back in, the Pharmacy comes out once more.
I mean, they have plenty of time to poke, so I like the Pharmacy. Time is on their side, but Play shouldn't have gotten that re-engagement really at all. They had no right. I think Groink TP's in at just the last second. Now with that poke beginning, though, the seconds are waning away for Play, and they still don't have any tools. The Sound Barrier is a far cry away from being available for this fight. Might
Oh,
need it
that's
by the
an
time
early
that
lamp.
poke damage actually comes in. Lamp's already been forced out, absolutely. A teleporter's attempted by Play, but not a single player lies in sight. Even Alexi gets away from the teleporter. That's a key cooldown now gone for the next 10-15 seconds or so until that critical ability is back up. They're just eating damage from this far. A nano boost in on top of the monkey as well comes out, but Momentum did get a sound barrier up just in the nick of time. Not enough so to save Keo, but the rest of the team remains upright. No trade is found off the back of it though, and Raspberry Racers, they're only coming up on more.
Yeah, they're sitting ducks at the moment up against this pharmacy. The second that that lamp is gone, the second that the amplification matrix is used, it was a gambit from Play. The second that the poke phase forced that lamp, Reflect knows there is only one way that Play is going to be able to live to survive through a barrage, and that is throwing amp to zone Raspberry Racers so that Momentum can build into the sound barrier. But again, we see the same problem rear its head every single time Groink is away from one of these squishies and not just babysitting 24/7 with that Rhine shield. Cloud is that, and making sure that the pharmacy is showing its presence and absolutely smashing through every single one of these squishies.
And the scary part is that Pharmacy's not gone anytime soon, right? Night Market really just spells more disaster for the team that fears this Pharmacy. And it does feel like Player making a lot of the right decisions. They're on the right page for a lot of this. The fight plans are coming in with, right, waiting for the sound barrier. If it was a half second earlier, it would have been better. But everything just needs to be tightened up a little bit if they want to find success. The teleport out here does get them to point. As expected, Raspberry Racers will be the aggressors onto what is a fortress set up by Play here early on.
Groink, yeah, going for that, just trying to build themselves onto this point so that they can survive as long as possible with the natural covering. The Maywall going to make it harder for Jcaro to be able to escape, but it's not the ball that you have to worry about. The ball is literally bells and whistles, a distraction technique to pull your focus away from the true threat. Farah and the Sojourn, both of who can flank.
TP out onto Andraco. Wisely dodged, though, by the Ana player. Putting so much pressure now onto Play, who are grouped up outside the point. In fact, they've allowed a flip to come through. If they don't get a trade here, oh, it's going to be a disaster. Alexi's already caught the backside of Momentum as he retreated onto the point. What do you actually do to respond to this? There's nothing left in the tank. Play have been completely outwitted, outmatched, and out-kited by Andraco, who I think really set that up by avoiding the teleport.
Forget Jkaru's bells and whistles. Andraco forced Play to fall for that hook, line, and sinker, and they found a flip. And now the Farah comes into so much danger for Play to face against, because every single time you try and just teleport to point, the Rhine shield is going to be absolutely shattered. They throw the teleport just to bait Raspberry Racers away, but there's the barrage.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be an easy one. Easy pickup for Gustav as well. Play had nothing coming in there, and attacking into this far, like you said, it's just so difficult.
We need to see the cast swap. We need to see the cast swap now. Pack can play the Symmetra. I know you want to be able to use this Blizzard. You want to keep the Symmetra so you can just teleport to point. But the problem is Raspberry Racers can literally just avoid the Blizzard or have Jcaro just throw the hammer mines on top of it.
And as you say it, there come those mines. Dropped onto point, forcing Play off to the back edge all the way to coast on this map. 4 percentage points more before Play take it over. A teleport onto Andraco, this time far more successful than the first. Allows Groink to get back in on the point, but doesn't really find the kill that they're looking for in Alexi, who's still a major threat on the Sojourn. Keo can charge up the beam, but nothing's really going to answer, especially with the res having come through on Andraco. That extends this team fight significantly for Raspberry Racers, who have a ton of sustain.
Play used Blizzard though. They're trying to just take down Jcaro so they can stall this fight a little bit longer, but that's one ultimate gone. Now they're going to be relying on a Shatter to be able to win a fight when Raspberry Racers, all of their main players, all of their damage components are going to be away from the spacing that Shatter is going to provide for this team.
It's a tough Shatter to land, but fortunately they're playing defense on the point, so Jcaro might again be on the wrong end of the solo Shatter beat stick, so to speak.
It's not Jcaro you have to worry about.
Yeah, it's Cloud. There's a lot of damage threat from the side. The barrage is up. Player very aware of this, but with the Immortality Field, that's it. That's lights out. The Immortality Field, such an important tool to deny that ultimate. They smell blood in the water and strike while the iron's hot. The trades are good for Play, though. A nice shot from Pack. A nice fire strike from Groink, and all of a sudden things are looking good for Play.
Yeah, now we're going to be able to properly see Pack on this may really find a lot of impact, just denying J-Carry's mobility. Because they know where the Hammond is, but Reflect, who was split away from the team, isn't actually able to get into the Symmetra TP in time and goes down stalled again.
Such sick foresight from Raspberry Racers to cut off the spawns, to cut off the lifeline from play. Now Mines to take the point back over. They still got a nano boost to extend the fight should they need it, but they don't. 95% for play. They just need one fight, but it's going to be a hard one to get.
Oh, they're going to be going into a nano-boosted Pharah in control of a choke with no traditional hit scan other than Reflect on the Baptiste, who again is just taking so much poke damage. That was almost a successful 2-tap onto the Baptiste.
I mean, it's still doable. If they can get to point, find a good opportunity to use that sound barrier. No, getting to point is now a lot harder.
Getting to point is now going to be next to impossible, considering off of the poke damage, Cloud is up to another barrage.
Oh, and the spawn's just too far away. Kyo swaps off the Symmetra. They've got to charge in, use the sound barrier to engage. Not even that's enough health to get past. Oh my god. It has been a while since I have seen a more impactful pick than that. The Symmetra goes, and the entire game plan just completely crumbles for play.
Yeah. That is the problem when you're running this composition, right? You need the Symmetra, otherwise the Reinhardt shield is going to be absolutely shredded before you even get within 20 meters of the point. And as a result, when you're up against a Pharah who's going to be uncontested and hitting every single shot with a Mercy damage boosting 24/7, since you're doing no damage to pull the Mercy off of the Pharah and force that resurrection, you're going to get 2-tapped, you're not going to be able to survive to the point. But the problem then becomes if you're running the Symmetra, you get to the point, but then you walk off it because you fell for the oldest trick in the book. Ye old, I am a damsel in distress, poor defenseless Anna, please don't chase after me and ignore the objective. Surprise is what we wanted all along. You're not gonna have a fun time navigating any choke afterwards, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's the oldest trick in the book, but certainly not the easiest trick in the book to pull off. On Draco's positioning and spacing to avoid those TPs was, I mean, bar none perfection in a lot of these situations. Yes, on Draco still went down in a lot of those situations, but forced them to expend a lot more resources than they wanted to do so. And that's where you see
you're running Mercy. So every single time you lose the Ana, as long as Andraco dies, but we see Cloud come in with a really impactful play to just ironically force play to hit pause, you're still going to actually be able to time the res. So a lot of the time, even though they traded the Ana, it was like for 5 seconds. And then immediately he was back in the mix.
Yeah, it created a lot of trouble, but that's, again, the difficulty we see, right? To get one player on that side is, you know, doable for play, but that one player isn't mission critical. And I think that's, I mean, if we want to go into like the real spaghetti and the code of Overwatch 2 and talk about why we don't see as much like Reinhardt Rush and stuff, the players on the Rush composition aren't nearly as individually capable as the players coming out of a dive composition, right? They lose their Ana. Raspberry Racers still have a chance in a fight, right? Whereas the Symmetra goes for play and it's over. It's completely done. There's nothing left. They lose their flex support. It's done. The Lucio's there. They can't disengage. It's done. And all the time in the world that's given away to the dive composition on a map like Lijiang to poke away, to try and find one of those kills, the value that they get from that kill is significantly higher than anything that they could hope to get from killing on Draco one time when there's a Mercy on them.
Yeah, and no surprises, that's why we're going to be seeing the Rhine, not Symmetra TP off into the distance, but definitely substitute into the distance. TVNT is going to be coming through to play for this team. No longer are we going to have that Reinhardt really heavily relying on a Symmetra TP. Now more than likely we're going to be able to see that dive for dive, but TVNT doesn't really favor the Winston. In the past, he's decided to try and opt into something like the Diva, which honestly can work out pretty well given that Cloud can be able to flex onto things like the Pharah. When you look at where we're going for that second map, the option is most definitely there for a Pharmacy to be able to control some of these avenues of choke.
Yeah, Midtown's gonna be our second map pick. I'm honestly welcome. I think this is a map that has been warranted in the map pool for some time. I think it offers a lot of flexibility to the teams that want to play things that aren't just the Winston, and Raspberry Racers, like you said, could certainly still run it here if they want to, right? J-Car could pilot that Winston virtually anywhere and make it look good and like it's meta. But play, on the other hand, I think definitely want to change things up. You said they bring a lot to the table in terms of counters to that Pharah Mercy. For me, I'm looking at Kyo to really shut that down. We need a strong hit scan presence on this map. Whether there's a Pharah or not, we need a strong hit scan presence on this map.
Yeah, we do need that hit scan. It was sorely lacking when we were looking at how Li Shang was panning out, and again, that just played into the space that Raspberry Racers had in terms of being able to position themselves. They had so much more monopoly on all of those off angles and every single one, whether it was control center with the Hanzo or whether or not it was just the pharmacy, being able to run absolutely rampant with the burst damage on Night Market. And I'm hoping that we do get to see that crossfire come through with Kyo coming in on something like either a Cassidy or an Ashe, and then Swag Money being able to flex onto things like the Echo, so that you can set up a crossfire and try and actually put a little bit more pressure onto the backline, because every single time we saw utility coming through from either Reflex or Momentum, it was forced, right? You definitely could tell that they did it with gritted teeth, and when you compare Raspberry Racers to when they wanted to use things, they did it at their own leisure. They were absolutely unpressured, uncontested for the entire thing.
It's not just that lack of pressure, it's the flexibility that I think Raspberry Racers bring to the table. That experience that they have, the ability to stay calm in the match, to come up with new and creative fight plans, different routes of getting through the fights as opposed to the much more structured play that we're seeing from Play. When it's like, okay, game plan, TP onto somebody. Okay, that didn't work. Oh, guess that's it, guys. Pack it up. Like, the game plans from Raspberry Racers have been far more fluid, and I think that really bodes well for them, especially coming into a Midtown that I suspect the comps that we start on are not going to be the comps that we finish on. There's a lot of changing to be done here from these teams to specifically counter things, to try and play into the map geometry. So for Play, that consistency might not need to be there. They might need a little bit more of that pop-off, a little bit more of that fluidity if they want to get through Midtown.
Yeah, especially when you look at how you want to position your hit scan on point A and compared to B. The Cassidy, especially on point B, there's so much focus on being able to control that high ground. You want to be able to swap onto things like the Hanzo or the Ashe, where you're just going to be able to transition really smoothly from one to the other, so that you can peel a lot faster, as opposed to the Cassidy, who, until lifts are put onto this map, is unfortunately going to be stuck having to climb the stairs.
Yeah, but I understand why, right? The Hanzo, the Ashe can get pressured out so consistently here by a lot of things. Harder to dive, or harder to get away from the dives. You're playing the Ashe. The Hanzo has damage, but doesn't have the hit scan should they offer up that Pharah Mercy again. The Cassidy really is that middle ground. Can be defended by the D.Va fairly easily. Sticks close, takes down Cloud already. Having a good showing here on Midtown.
Yeah, but here we go. Raspberry Racers going back to the drawing board, pulling from all of their different compositions that they can field onto. Alexi goes onto the Sombra. They see the Cassidy. You can only have one Burden Nade. If you bait it out, you're going to create so much more space for the rest of your players.
I brought it up, right? We're going to be playing a little bit of musical heroes here. Already coming to fruition. Raspberry Racers have cleared the choke, but decide not to dive all the way to point, instead looking to aggress onto this high ground. Accruing resources to start out, trying to stage on an opposing high ground so Cloud can blink over. It's a little disjointed, especially leaving Gustav behind hurts. But the D.Va's still under more pressure than J-Karu is. J-Karu topples first, though. Reflect doing a great job of keeping TVNT up.
They're really trying to go for TVNT. Alexi on this Sombra's looking for the hacks. That's the second time we see the D.Va hack back to back, but Reflect, entirely uncontested, being able to fall back onto Tunnel, is able to keep the D.Va in the mech, and as a result, Raspberry Racers fully commit to this dive.
They're charging up towards ultimates, though. 65% to an EMP is a far cry. You don't want to have to spend that on A just to get a fight win. They're really lacking other tools. The Nano Boost is almost up here. Alexi is forced out, though, and if they try to engage with the Nano Boost right now, they're going to be down one player in that Sombra to follow up on the Winston, so they've got to wait a couple more seconds, but waiting means you're getting poked away at by Kyo, which also isn't fun. Finally, the Cavalry all gets there, but it's too little too late. Nobody can follow up on the Nano Boosted dive from J-Karu. Swag Money is found in the meantime on a side lane, fortunately by Cloud, but getting more than that's going to be so difficult without J-Karu. EMP's out, but again, it's late, and it's not coordinated by Raspberry Racers. They are losing their marbles right now.
Yeah, TVNT is able to get back in the mech with the self-destruct as well, and Play have made sure that Raspberry Racers off of that EMP only pick up a single tick. Now they're going to have a Primal and a Pulse Bomb, as well as a Rally, but Play have control of Choke yet again, and the Disjointed Dive has to find a target in the Cassidy.
Kyo fortunately was able to escape the initial clutches of a Primal Rage from J-Karu, but can't beat Alexi. Second engagement onto the point looks far better for Raspberry Racers. They will get a point A cap, but it's been a pretty costly endeavor, Mox.
And you have to ask yourself too, where's the snowball potential? Well, that might be one of them. Nice good stall pick onto TVNT. So Play not actually going to have a tank to be able to survive or use that defense matrix to be able to peel does mean they're having to play a little bit further back than they would like, allowing Clyde to be able to approach with the pulse bomb and try and find an entrance onto one of these squishies.
Evan makes a swap over to a Junker Queen. The theoretical counter here to the Winston, at least when you can hold the space. That shotgun is a major damage threat for J-Karu. With the pulse bomb there's still a lot of major damage threats that Raspberry Racers have to offer up. EMP namely one of them, 90% there. I think if J-Karu... Oh my god, wait, this is a dream come true for Raspberry Racers if they can just get J-Karu out, but oh my goodness, J-Karu is not having a fun time.
Reflex actually swapped to the Kiriko as well. Now that TVNT is off of that Diva, you don't have to have all of that burst sustain to keep the mech alive. The Junker Queen with the shout comes with that self-sustain, and you can actually prioritize just surviving the dive over being able to keep your tank's legs up.
An extra bit of CC as well that the Junker Queen provides. Throwing the knife into J-Karu, won the last fight. EMP this time wins this fight. Kyo taking down to half HP, easily finished off. J-Karu continues to zap away at the back line of play, but it's a pretty straightforward plan and execution for Raspberry Racers.
Yeah, good ultimate usage. EMP into Nano straight away. Fight win, find the kills that you need. Problem is that there is another fight coming, and now it's going to rely on Stall, Gustav, and J-Karu. Both are going to have crowd control, but Play start things off, now having to be on the back foot with the rally.
Well, the rally hasn't put them on the back foot too much. That will, though. Pulse bomb onto Gustav cuts the sustain in half here for Raspberry Racers. They've got a lot of space, but how exactly do they want to take this point over? They have so much damage pressure in front of them that Raspberry Racers can't actually afford to sit on this cart. J-Karu tries and pays the ultimate price.
Yeah, and for Raspberry Racers, it wasn't even a case of we're going to bait them into using ultimates. They equalize ultimate usage too. J-Karu now is actually going to go onto the Orisa to try to deal with the rampage that is going to be coming through, just to try and stop it in its tracks. Alexi might be able to find a good hack on it as well, because the rampage is going to be the one thing Raspberry Racers without a Kiriko have to be so concerned about.
They don't have many good fights after this, right? Minute 20 on the clock. They're paying the price for the time that they lost earlier on. This has really got to be better opportunities that they get. Pulse bomb from Cloud maybe could see them through, especially with Heaven having been dropped low early on in this fight. I love that Raspberry Racers actually aren't giving them any targets, though. If it's a rampage, it's only going to be a rampage onto J-Karu. They'll accept it, though. Anti-ing the Orisa. Momentum taken down on the back end, though, and the Orisa has no problem disengaging back up onto that high ground. This swap has proven immaculate for Raspberry Racers as it works out exactly to plan. Now Tevin left with nowhere to go, twiddling their thumbs in the middle of a battlefield in which they are completely lost. Raspberry Racers half a B point with a phenomenal swap over to the Orisa. The impact really can't be overstated here, but wait. Maybe there's a chance?
Oh, they had
Alexi's
choosing
cleaned
EMP.
up enough. There was a chance.
There was a chance, and both teams saw it, and both teams as a result, Dork. Count them with me. Nano boosted Orisa, okay, fine. You needed to win the fight. Deadeye, EMP. Both committed at the tail end. Play trying to use the Deadeye to just take Raspberry Racers down before the car could finalize checkpoint. Alexi throwing the EMP in, just trying, knowing without the tank that your squishies were about to be picked off. And as a result, it's eaten into snowball potential available for Raspberry Racers. Play still having the Junker Queen, but Swag Money now goes on to the Echo, Kyo, the Ash Momentum, the Mercy to be able to pocket. They understand Ultimate Economy is against Raspberry Racers at the moment. They just have to play mobile enough to stay out of the range of Terror Surge and Rally.
Yeah, Alexi's doing everything in their power to try and build up another EMP to see to the end of this point. They don't have time, really. They can't sustain these fights because Swag Money swapped over to that Echo. J-Karu in the fight prior was able to live for a long time, to kind of sit there on the point and bide time for the Sombra. Not the case anymore with Focusing Beam offering up just too much damage to really contend with, and an early pick, that's not really much more than a scrap by Raspberry Racers.
There's a lot of spy check potential here as well. Alexi is going to be coming into this next fight with the EMP, but the question becomes, can anyone follow up on it? Yes, you're going to have a nano boost, but Play are just going to be playing so far back that if they get caught by it, they can still sustain.
With J-Karu getting fun policed, this is difficult to say the least. Lacking the rally as well after having spent it early in the last engagement. EMP's up, but Alexi is, I mean, more than 2-day delivery. This is a very late EMP. One that Play, I mean, this is an easy disengage. More than an easy disengage. They have moonwalked away from Raspberry Racers, looking cool as ever.
By the time the EMP comes out, Swag Money actually had the duplicate onto J-Karu, and as a result, Raspberry Racers didn't have a tank to be able to create the space. They'll get a little cheeky extra percentage of distance with Cloud, pulling a little bit of a soon on the payload, but that's going to be all they're able to pick up.
Yeah, there's nothing left here. Fortunately for Raspberry Racers, I think this is something that they've dug out of nothing, having capped 2.5 points here. It could have been a lot worse. Point A was looking incredibly difficult for them. Yeah, it could have been a very different situation. We got a couple of staggers here, but nothing that's going to keep overtime going any longer. Play now on the attacking side have a bar to pass, and honestly, I think they're in a pretty good position to do it.
The problem with Play is that we've seen them with their Rhine Symmetra. Now they have to play Dive. And Dive is very, very different to how you want to operate, especially on mid-term where you have a couple of questions on where you want to be able to rotate. Do you want to go straight for the point? Do you want to try and go towards tunnel where you know the backline's going to be playing a little bit safer? Or do you want to try and push the DPS off of the steps up to train, because you know that if you don't rotate cleanly and you go straight for point or backline and you leave someone behind for even just an iota of a second and the DPS is still in control of steps on train carriage, one of your squishies is going down early.
Those rotations have been difficult for them, not just in this map, but in the previous map as well, right? Constantly losing one player in the backline every time they tried to go for some sort of dive. The situation looks like it's going to be much the same this time. Alexi will remain largely uncontested on the Ashe if they stay on the high ground. Play has 1 TP, and they can send it towards Andreyko or Alexi. As long as they keep those players separated, they'll be all right. But Alexi sides better of the Ashe.
The Diva. I would be expecting the Diva too, but it looks like TVNT is actually going to be coming out on the Junker Queen, and Play are going to do the exact same thing that they tried on Control Point. And that's Symmetra, no, there it is. Symmetra TP out of spawn, swap towards the Tracer, and then just run this Junker Queen as quickly as possible. But you have absolutely nothing to really contest when that dive properly comes through, other than the bird and nade from Kyo and the knife from TVNT.
Yeah, the river crossing that they're engaging in now is through rough waters, to say the least. Yeah, immediately losing 1 momentum. Far too vulnerable. No matter what main support you're playing, it's just difficult to get them across that road.
Yeah, I mean, you can try it on the Lucio, but then you don't have that dive fuel in the form of something like the Brigida. If you use the Junker Queen shout too early to be able to rotate, Raspberry Racers are just going to smell blood in the water, because that's your main tool of burst sustain when this dive properly decides to hit in. And now you've lost the Brigida, and yet again we're going to see the split.
This poor guy, I mean, just cannot catch a break. Momentum does manage to somehow make the crossing, despite all the damage being thrown at them, despite the spawn being cut off by Raspberry Racers. Now Raspberry Racers have to contend with a pretty tricky position. Tick and a half being given away now. A nano boost up, and they're going to need to use it if they want to invest in this fight early. Car separating away the defensive back line of Play from that aggressive front line, putting a lot of damage down into Momentum, but the health bars just refuse to hit zero. Primal Rage is needed to finally topple over the likes of that Brigida. There's still so much left in the tank here for Play. Alexi left with a critical decision. Do we want to use this EMP? They do, but there's no follow-up, Mox, and unfortunately, it's just going to fall on deaf ears. Finally, Raspberry Racers try and pull a couple of spawns in to finish off some low health bars, but Play have stabilized.
Cloud's got that pulse spawn, though. Unfortunately, not going to be able to will be able to use it. Deadeye traded for pulse bomb now that the Cassidy is immobile, and Raspberry Race is still trying to contest. They do have the rally if they want to play sustainability, but somehow, with the healing that they have available, they haven't even needed to dig in to use it.
Oh, Raspberry Racers. I found a sick re-engage. I was so worried about that EMP. It looked like it really wasn't going to be enough, but they held that pressure just long enough to get the Winston back in the fight and do the real critical damage. Now minute 44 and things are looking dire for Play.
Kyo just didn't want to use Deadeye in case that EMP cancelled it early, and as a result, Rapid Racers found the in. Even though Deadeye was charging up, Cloud had the spacing to be able to take the Cassidy down without the Burden Aid. That's your main counter to the dive engagement gone, and Play yet again are potentially going to lose a player to this really long rotation. And if they lose a player to this long rotation, though, they're not going to get them back intact after this fight.
The upside is that if they can get this crossing, they've got a lot of nice ultimates to take this re-engage with. Bulking up that Junker Queen with the rally, sending her in with the Rampage, but unfortunately the Rampage just doesn't hit much of anything. Gustav's got momentum. A trade onto Andraco from a Hail Mary Pulse Bomb out of the back pocket of Swag Money does give them a snowball's chance at re-engaging this, but they've only got the one angle to do it from, and that one angle is walking directly into an EMP from Alexi. Great follow-up by Raspberry Racers. Spells the doom of Play, who only have 45 seconds now.
Reflex going to have a Kitsune Rush. Kyo can try to use it to build that Deadeye, but Cloud is going to be approaching a Pulse Bomb to be able to counter the Cassidy ultimate, and J-Kara has all of the stall Raspberry Racers need. They don't even need to Play to wait for Play to walk onto point. They can literally just pick apart this team in rotation, keep them pressured so they run out of time on their own two hands.
That's what I want to see, exactly what you're talking about. Cut off that rotation with the Primal Rage, then use the Pulse Bomb once the team's been picked apart. See if they execute on that. Raspberry Racers pop the Primal right when that rotation comes in. Keep the Brig out of the safe rooms. They've been too greedy in doing so, though. Jay Carter's taken down. The Pulse Bomb does connect, but not without cost. Play have traded 2 for 1 and got themselves a point cap over here on A, but there is a lot of map to go yet on Midtown.
So much time has been burnt off the clock. At least Play do have Deadeye to potentially zone Raspberry Racers and clear up this high ground so that Kyo or even Reflect can try and pick apart one of these players from the side of Raspberry Racers before this next fight begins. Because Door, let's be honest, they need to have a fast push through B to make up for the absolute mountain it took to climb point A.
Yeah, we talked about how much time Raspberry Racers lost on their A push, but that was a lot more for Play, and a devastating amount that costs them a lot in terms of ultimate snowball potential, like you were talking about. They don't have a good position here on this point either because they weren't able to find any early picks. They tried really hard to look for them there. Overextended following their A cap, looking for something on the high ground so that they could go for it and claim it later, but when they came up empty-handed, now they're just going to be fighting into the high ground, into a dive composition, which is about as nightmarish as it gets.
Yeah, and you can't even really try and be greedy with this Deadeye, right? Because, well, you know there's an Ana on the other side. There's a sleep dart scripted with your name on it if you're not too careful in how you position. And even then, you have to worry about things like the Sombra hack or the Winston bubble just getting in the way of the spacing. And herein lies the problem. When you run a Junker Queen, the reason why we see so many teams pair it up with a Lucio is so that you don't have to use the shout early to be able to put yourself into actually being able to position into a fight. Raspberry Racers can literally run laps around you with how mobile this composition is in comparison.
Yeah. I mean, this Deadeye, I think it's kind of dead in the water, large part. So is Swag Money. That doesn't happen often.
Is that a dead body on the floor? Pulse Bomb? I think it might have been a sleep into self Pulse Bomb.
Either way, this one's a little jover for Play. They'll walk that one back for the next 10 seconds.
That's really unfortunate. You need. Oh, we're gonna get to say slip.
No! Oh!
God!
Wait. Oh, it was a bonk! Oh, wow.
It was. It was
1-2 combo from the back line of Raspberry Racers.
Onto Pulse Bomb.
That's messed up. That's kind of cruel. But Andraco, Gustav, hats off. Next engagement looks just as well with an early nano boost having been thrown in. Play still don't have ultimates, but that Deadeye and that thing, I mean, it's dead in the water. Deadeye is a glorified reload button into dive compositions.
Yeah, so here's the problem, because Play have now lost 2 fights back to back before they've actually been able to do much of anything in terms of damage department. They're now running into an EMP. J-Kara is just set up, already expended that jump cooldown to be able to put himself into a position where he's going to be able to cleave and drop down onto all of these players. And it's the exact same thing we saw from point A in their last rotation. Choke and suffocate these rotations from Play so that they lose even more time.
However, Raspberry Racers, I mean, they're trying to set up for this EMP. Player counterplaying it well by putting themselves in avoidable places where they can get away from that EMP, but Cloud down, there's no follow-up. Raspberry Racers know that there's little time on the clock, knows there's only 1 fight left, we'll just take a reset.
Yeah, I mean, they've been able to burn out 1 ultimate as well. Kyo's Deadeye removed. Raspberry Racers were just a little bit of frat positioning Cloud towards the Cassidy, force him into using it early, and Alexi now is just waiting to actually throw the EMP in, just goes for the casual hack onto the Tracer, and as a result, there's plays maneuvering around the payload.
I mean, this is nigh on impossible, right? For Play, to find your way through this would be to find a needle in a haystack. Or a hay in a stack of needles. As it's a far more arduous and painful task than as formerly mentioned. The EMP just looming in the wings. I do want to see Raspberry Racers use this aggressively. Because that Tracer's now back. They've allowed the 5v5 to go down instead of taking advantage of the 4v5 that they basically had handed to them earlier on.
They don't want to play it into the rally in case it gets stunned out.
I suppose so. That rally's now gone. As is a lot of tools. The Rampage, I think, got canceled. The EMP comes out. The rally now from Raspberry Racers makes them ever stronger. A Primal Rage they could use even later in this fight to sustain through. Player just out of tools. It's checkmate at the final door here on B. Raspberry Racers will be likely taken away Midtown in the following seconds.
Yeah, it's literally just clean up on aisle 2 at the moment, as Raspberry Racers still have ultimates to be able to throw in to the tank. This is the planning that went through this team's head when they saw how much time had been chunked down from point A. The second that we moved into point B and there's sub 2 minutes left available, Raspberry Racers just burn ultimates, positioning, player respawns off of the time bank available, knowing that even if the rally is out, they just don't want to throw an EMP. They've still got time. They're still going to be able to out-sustain. They can live through and cancel that Rampage. And as a result, they can just continue to suffocate plays. Any power play that this team could make just gone before that payload was able to hit the second checkpoint.
And everything that you bring up has to do with the macro play from Raspberry Racers, right? And I think what that is, I mean, in large part, just the experience that this team brings. One more time to appreciate that. Sorry. Anyways, the macro play that Raspberry Racers bring to the table is to do with that experience, right? They're so calm in these situations. They're so willing to play the time and understand that they can just win fights later when it's more important. On one hand, yes, player matching them bar for bar, I would say, if not more than that, in terms of mechanics. Kyo's been a monster damage-wise, has topped the lobby by a significant margin for a very long time. But unfortunately, that's just not enough to see you through fights that aren't winning in terms of ultimates, in terms of positioning, in terms of setup from previous fights.
Yeah, and here's the thing, again, with this composition, right? When you're running up against an Ana, a Brigida, and a Winston, all of whom have tools of just stalling out a fight, even if you're down players, and that was another thing that Raspberry Racers were able to use to really good advantage. If they knew that Nano Boost was online and someone was getting pressured and wouldn't be able to actually keep that line of sight, Nano Boost would come out and they'd be able to hold position. Same for things like Primal and Rally. Every single time Play wanted to make an aggressive move, Raspberry Racers were there first, forcing their hand, forcing them to wait, and then allowing Play the actual opportunity to be able to use an ultimate only when Raspberry Racers were either in position to be able to survive it or in position to be able to aggressively counter it with something of their own.
Yeah, well, look, Play do have a lot of tricks up their sleeve. They have a lot of ways to counter things, but see if they've got enough tricks up their sleeve to try and reverse sweep this one after the break.
You like solving problems. Problems like how to stop that Tracer from deleting your backline. I know just what you're thinking. Go bring a turret. But y'all can't solve all your problems by simply bringing an extra friend to the battlefield. For that, you need the Contenders Torbjorn skin. Solve your problems by connecting your Battle.net account to Twitch. After that, watching Overwatch Contenders Summer Series will contribute to your drops progress, letting you claim your Overwatch Contenders Torbjorn skin. Even your turret gets an upgrade. Warning, the Overwatch Contenders Torbjorn skin does not come with extra or upgraded turrets. Build instructions will not be provided. By picking Torbjorn, you waive a claim towards any destroyed turrets. No refunds, no exchanges, and no take-backsies.
Hey, howdy, and welcome back, everybody. We are coming into map number 3 of our first series of the day. Things are looking up for Raspberry Racers, who I think you guys predicted to win this one. Play, though, on the other hand, need a way out, and they are screaming Circuit Royale. Please help me.
I'm just a little bit concerned, though, because the one problem that we saw Play struggle with most of all, not mechanicals, not ultimate usage, was rotations and losing players early. And Circuit Royale might be one of the most punishing maps in the current Overwatch climate. But when you lose a fight and you have to walk back into another one, and another one, and another one, and another one, and another one after that.
Yeah, and usually it wouldn't be that big of a problem because you're running the Sigma, but I don't think either of these teams are intending to run Sigma. In fact, we've seen a lot of teams shift away from it in terms of Circuit Royale. I think we've seen less Sigma than Ramatras, than Monkeys, than a lot of other picks on Circuit Royale this season for one reason or another. I mean, they're just kind of shifting away from it, and as we say that, Play puts in Groink.
Yeah, are we gonna see the return of the Symmetra Rhine composition? I'm really hoping that we're going to see, if it does come through, a second game plan. If that initial TP strategy just does not pan out. Because we saw what happened, right? Every single time they lost the sim, every single time they got one player just too pressured to actually be able to properly commit to that teleport, everybody from Play backed off. And I don't mean like backed off a little bit, I mean backed off entirely from every single off angle, applying any sort of pressure onto Raspberry Racers when they were running just DPS super aggressively, almost towards Play every single time a choke was in control.
Yeah, as well, Pack's gonna come back in. The other swap here for Play. It's mission critical, though, that they're able to get onto that backline. I mean, it's been a struggle the entire time, right? Dive just jumps onto you. It's pretty straightforward, but for these compositions that want to brawl, want to rush on maps that aren't Winston maps, or that are more vulnerable to the dive, I suppose is probably the better way to put it. It's just such a difficult, right? You go on this like 7-day odyssey just to kill one member of the backline, and like sometimes it just doesn't even matter that much. Mentally, it's a lot for these teams because Play, you can tell they're putting a lot into these fight plans, into being creative with their routing, into making sure that they're taking the correct pathing to avoid being split off by the dive as much as possible. But sometimes it's just not working for them, and try as they might, they can only go so many routes, especially on a Circuit Royale, where it's one route. There's no side lanes to take on this map. It is a singular road in a singular direction, save for maybe point B, which is the best point on this map for the Reinhardt in a lot of ways. It's going to be a struggle. But like I said, point B is a silver lining that I need to see them take advantage of.
Yeah, there are a couple of detours that you can take, but they're costly. And that is something that we've seen Raspberry Racers capitalize on time and time again. Every single time Play have had to slow things down by taking these quote-unquote safer rotations to try and save out on losing players early, it has eaten into that time bank, and Raspberry Racers have taken advantage at a later date, as we can we can see that. Yeah, I agree. Swag money for ain't got no swag when he got put to sleep and pulse bumped himself. Great play from Andreko. Honestly, that's probably the most in terms definition of a sleight of hand nat 20 that I've ever seen played in Overwatch.
Yeah, it was also just like the sick little 1-2 alley-oop. Like, it wasn't just Andreko. Don't be wrong, Andreko hit the nat 20, but the
boop from
follow up, the
Gustav?
teamwork, yeah, recognizing that they were a little bit too far from the pulse bomb. So like, oh, I'll just nudge you a little closer there. Why don't you go ahead and take a look at your pulse bomb, inspect it a little closer for me, you know?
10-pin bowling with traces.
Unsurprisingly, the Reinhardt does come out here for Play. It's a close hold to be paired with the Symmetra. Raspberry Racers tasked with beating this, but they bring a Widowmaker to the party. See if Alexa can hit a critical shot here.
There's no Mei either from the side of Play to be able to just wall Raspberry Racers
that
on.
blew it.
And Alexi finds back, and without that Symmetra, Play's mobility is cut off entirely. I feel like the momentum this time is going to be on the Lucio, but that Rhine just doesn't have enough sustainability.
Yeah, I mean, one pick is just enough in these situations. As well, the Symmetra was a lot of the damage that was actually holding them inside that door. The Cassidy was monitoring for the Widowmaker, and granted, did kill her eventually, but maybe a little bit too slow. A couple trades will come in from Play, but nothing impactful.
And this is where it's going to get concerning for Play, right? Because you've now lost where the Reinhardt is going to be at its most powerful, at least for the beginning part of point A. The longer and clearer that these sightlines become, the more room that Groink has to be able to navigate into these fights. At least Alexi is actually going to be sticking on the Widowmaker, not going for something with a traditional shield break catalyst to its name.
Yeah, and again, this makes sense, right? You're trying to cut away a lot of that backline, not hard TP engage onto these teams as often as you can. You want to hold these corners, look for picks. Lexi doing exactly that. Playing around with the angle, looking for any sort of weakness in the backline of play. Any player stepping even marginally out of position is a vulnerability that Raspberry Racers will look to take advantage of. As they start their way forward, though, Play, think of a TP. The rest of the team doesn't seem on board with it. Primal Rage now gives a sense of urgency to Play, who respond with the Deadeye, but not much has really gone down. This fight's been a real nothing burger, Mox.
Ooh, that's a lamp forced by a pulse bomb, and as a result, Raspberry Racers finally get to make the dive that they've been looking for. This is another characteristic of dive, right? That first jump is never the actual aggressive play. It is always just Jakaro taking a little bit of damage, face tanking, building up Andreiko's ultimate charge so that with the nano boost you're properly sustained and cushioned with that damage reduction to be able to hold your ground and finally challenge this death ball brawl composition that player wanting to set into motion that's never actually been able to get off the ground so far.
Raspberry Racers now making a couple swaps, go over to the Ash to break their way out of spawn here. Play want an aggressive fight, and it's an aggressive fight they'll get. Just not being forced back, but I do like this early hold. Sound Barrier engage seems desperate. I would say out of play. They're trying to find something out of this engagement. They do get it. Alexi's caught out, and you know what? It's worked out despite my own grievances. It was a really messy play, but it worked.
Yeah, and this is actually going to be great for play in this next engagement because what they've done is they've been able to buy themselves space so that when we see things like the Shatter or the Amplification Matrix come out, it's going to burn time off of Raspberry Racers' overall bank and make up for how fast that point A push actually was. The problem is that Alexi sees that player trying to control all of that space for those two ultimates and opts onto the Sojourn to be able to just power slide onto an off angle.
Yeah, Sojourn's mean here. Look at that, just instantly slides away from the teleporter. Great block as well on the Shatter. Frank's now in no man's land. Lamp is out as well. A lot of resources are gone here for play, and a rush composition on the back foot is never in a comfortable position. They can maybe try and find a re-engage here, but I mean, it's difficult at best, especially with the teleporter missing. Raspberry Racers are going to claim a lot of space, if not the fight here off the back of a nano boost.
Oh, and that's a nano boost Winston denying the space of the Ant Matrix that play were looking to stem the bleeding with.
Look how skillfully Jakaro is able to still get a bunch of primal damage off and avoid the Deadeye at the same time. That is so difficult to do with the limited range of those Winston arms. They'll eventually go down, but space has been taken. The cart progress has been gained in play. Aren't going to be able to take a re-engage until Grunt gets back here.
Yeah, they can't risk it. They know that Alexi is in position to just be able to chunk these players down and try and find that one-shot railgun all-fire as Jakaro comes back on the Wrecking Ball.
How do I feel about the Wrecking Ball? It feels like they were trying to extend the fight with this Wrecking Ball. Winston would have been, I think, a lot more comfortable in this situation, but they made the swap. They're going to have to live with it. A big boop! Oh my god! Reflect went miles away! Got sent it to another zip code, Mox. How did that happen?
I mean, when you run into someone with that much momentum, ironically enough, you don't pick up the Lucio, but you definitely pick up the Baptiste, and this is where the Hammond is actually at its most punishing. Remember, play so closely together that every single time Jakaro actually activates the Wrecking Ball shields, he's always finding max value with them. He even anticipates the charge from going to try to intercept the payload and steps in front of it.
I think intercepting the charge is maybe a generous term for what happened there, but nevertheless, a teleport into the backline is attempted. Distracts Alexi for a moment. Gives actually a lot of time for play to come in. Immortality Field's been forced though, and they're slowly but surely running out of resources. The re-engage just wasn't there following the TP. And again, I think I've seen maybe one player take Pax TPs this entire map.
I think they're just too scared to do it. They saw what happened right in the past where, yeah,
I've been corrected here in this one, but even that didn't go well.
And they just get blitzed.
Yeah.
And this is, again, what the Sojourn takes full advantage of. If you're playing around this Reinhardt shield, the second that it breaks, you're going to have that ult fire up and you're going to take one of these squishies down. And it's something that play have to play conservatively around knowing.
There's nothing conservative about the ultimates that are up right now. Plenty of tools for either side. Going for a boot now. be too successful in doing so, but the mines will lock them to the outside corridors of Circuit Royale, which only gets worse. Remember, the cart is still moving! The payload's going! Guys, the cart! Guys!
No, no way.
Oh my goodness, it's not a C9, but it feels just as egregious. That is 90% of point C on Circuit Royale having been given up. Still no retort from Play as they spent 2 ultimates just trying to make their way back to the cart. A third trying to recontest it. Raspberry Racers still have gas in the tank, and Nano Boost onto Jkaru puts a ton of damage onto the backline, not to mention Groink, who's still trying to find some sort of recourse back against them, but it's just not there. Draco finally goes down, but Raspberry Racers have created one of the most chaotic fights I've ever seen on this map.
Play might be able, with those faster respawns, to be able to regain control of this fight, but the problem is it's only going to be temporary. Alexi is going to be coming in with an overclock, momentum and reflect both incredibly far away from ultimates to be able to counteract it, and Raspberry Racers have the means of just being able to sustain through these fights until either Gustav's rally is up, or Jkaru's got the hammer mines to be able to immediately claim that space.
The charge here, ultimates-wise, is a lot higher for Raspberry Racers, like you mentioned, but it's to the point where it's still difficult to measure. Tracking Play's ultimates through that last bit of chaos would have been very difficult. So Raspberry Racers, I think, are going to approach this quite tentatively, despite having an advantage when they get their ultimates up. They're starting to build towards mines, though. Alexi likely will be the go button with that overclock. It's just a matter of time. 97, 98, 99% for the Soldier, and a dive in. That's it, overclock pop. Play don't have any ultimates up to respond. They try to teleport in, but again, it's only Pack. Alexi now has high ground and overclock. This likely spells doom for Play.
Oh, the power slide past the Rhine shield to be able to take Groink down. Reflex gonna try and go for the Kiriko shot, but there's no one alive to be able to swift step to. And Raspberry Racers, it's so clean from them. They understand that everyone on the side of Play is going to be incredibly wary of that overclock coming through, that they're going to be playing behind the Rhine shield. And what does Jkaru do in that engagement when the fight starts? He's not looking for a knock. If he finds the moment, he's absolutely going to go for one. No, the really important play that he actually makes is he pile drives the squishies behind Groink's shield into view of Alexi's overclock, and that's where the bloodbath begins.
I mean, it was a phenomenally organized dive, but just as much so was the one that happened before, where Raspberry Racers never actually won a fight. They just got, 90 meters of cart progress. Yeah.
They got the police tape out. It was a do not cross line.
But again, that's the creativity that we've been getting out of Raspberry Racers this entire series. It hasn't been individual playmaking that's got them across this finish line. It's been opportunistic fight taking that's gotten them here, and that's exactly what that was.
They're always known for this as well. I don't know if you remember all the way back in, it was like season 1 or 2 of Contenders last year, Raspberry Racers had some of the cleanest Watchpoint Gibraltar point A approaches, because they would literally just backflank through the stairs to be able to push the entire team of them onto the defenders off of that high ground, so they would really quickly be able to take their claim on that ground, as Raspberry Racers are going to be running the traditional mode of composition on Circuit Rail when you're defending. Jkaru on the Sigma, Alexi and Clyde both picking up double sniper to be able to chunk down Groink shield. I like this time that we're seeing Pack though on the Mei, because this means that the Mei can actually survive with the Rhine shield and that Symmetra teleporter maybe being there for the rest of the team to be able to actually access.
Oh, you thought this map was hard to play on defense with Reinhardt. Boy howdy, wait till you figure out how difficult it is to walk into. Those teleporters are the only way forward for Play. Speed boosting into all this damage, into all this poke that Raspberry Racers are offering up is not an option. Period, hands down, end of story. Lexi continues to poke away, but Raspberry Racers are ceding quite a bit of space to Play in hopes that they're able to find a pick while they're in rotation, but they haven't been able to. A nice anti-nade does assist from Draco, but I think that lack of any sort of Zenyatta is really hurting them in terms of the level of poke that they can actually put out.
Yeah, and they're taking too much poke. Play had to immediately, after taking that teleporter, throw in the immortality field because the poke game from Raspberry Racers is just that much stronger. And yes, it does come with the silver lining that Reflex going to have the amplification matrix faster, but Raspberry Racers have the means of just being able to continue poking through the window, as we can see lovely grapple shots coming through from Alexi. Circuit Rail is known as one of Widow's best maps at the moment in Overwatch for a reason.
Race is again beginning their disengage procedure, slowly giving up the space which Play claim. They have a teleporter though. Where's it going? Kyo's already got it loaded up. Can they find... Draco's in such a weird position.
He can't teleport. He's going to be able to lob the anti-nade behind them!
Oh! And it completely connects! Gravitic Flux takes down the remainder of the health bars. Fortunately, Immortality Field keeps the majority of Play alive, but there's still so much damage going into that one small room, and the cart's not moving forward. They will help their approach forward with this Photon Barrier. But how much more can they realistically get done here? They have no gap closers. They try for another teleport play, but it's piecemeal at best.
Oh my goodness, that read from Mandraco. They understand that when you have that access, that you only have bridge control from a team with a Symmetra teleport, the only teleport location that they can safely go to avoid that poke damage coming through from Respirators is directly below the door frame. And Andraco with a little bit of parkour is able to make his way there with the anti. Something that Play hopefully don't fall for again is Lex goes a little bit too gung-ho.
Yeah, definitely overstayed their welcome trying to hold out, but the Dragon seems to have done its job. Completely clutched away two players.
That's Dragon Strike and Nano Boost. And now Alexi coming on to the Sojourn to be able to get back into the fight faster. Pack's going to have the Blizzard, Groint's going to have the Shatter. If they're able to actually find themselves the spacing to be able to properly use these, they should be able to find some form of value. But that's where the problem lies. Are they going to have the spacing to even be able to get close? Or Raspberry Race is going to pick them apart before the fight even begins?
Calling my shot now, J-Karu eats this Blizz. No! Didn't kinetic grasp towards the Mei! Kinetic grasped away! Unlucky stuff.
It would have stopped up.
No. They walled off J-Karu with it. Like, J-Karu was on the correct side of the wall, but nevertheless, it's not a fight you expect Raspberry Racers to take away. There was a clutch play opportunity, but unfortunately just not there. Play now have to work their way up the hill, and they do have ultimates to do it.
Yeah, the problem is that they're still going to be climbing up a hill, and they now have a significantly lower time bank because of how long it took them to be able to secure point A.
Making their way up, they will be cut off now by a Gravitic Flux. Half HP on each of these players. Where's the follow-up from Play? A rock from above, a flying Sigma, that'll do it. Gustav helps out as well, putting in a little bit of poke damage. Raspberry Racers turned one ultimate into one fight win. A very efficient take for them. One that they needed considering Play have a ton up of their own.
My hypothesis stands strong. Any tank can be a dive tank as long as you fall from a high enough distance.
Exactly.
Immortality Field gets baited out. It's the only thing that Play have in the pocket to be able to deal with the Sigma Flux, and as a result, that accretion just lands onto so many of them. Momentum not going to have the Sound Barrier. May will has to be used to make sure that Raspberry Racers are able to not find a pick as Play teleport towards Slope and drop Amp.
An Amp Matrix stare down turns into a cloud down. Can they keep that Hanzo alive? No is certainly the answer there. Gustav just not enough heals in the tank. Alexi slides away. 45 now for Raspberry Racers. They're looking for more. They want to pressure out this Reinhardt. Remember, they're a Hanzo short, which would have been a lot of the damage that would have been there to punish Groin from doing charges like that. Now, where do you actually find picks from? Well, Kyo's an option. Certainly, they caught them mid-teleporter while they were trying to get out. And that's the opportunity they really need. Raspberry Racers can afford the loss of Andraco considering that they still have another flex support up their sleeve and plenty of space to hold with this Sigma.
Play used Lamp though, and Dragons right now leaves them open because they're going to get Sigma Flux right into it!
It is a decent expense of Raspberry Racers, having thrown in two ultimates there, but they've still got plenty left.
Raspberry Racers have the thing that they're going to prioritize over ultimate economy, and a team that is just so problematic with rotations. They've got control of high ground slope, they've got overclock, they're going to have a nano boost. They have sustainability if they lose a player and the fight goes too long. They've got an overclock to be able to blitz play down and force them into using either the Blizzard zone or momentum Sound Barrier early on. Either way, when overtime hits, Raspberry Racers are going to be in far more control.
Last chance here for Play. They've got ultimates on deck, but you're really looking at momentum to be the one to land the critical ultimate. Sound Barrier. Can they turn it into an engage? They Sound Barrier from quite a ways back. Closing the gap on the Raspberry Racers, yeah, it's just not easy. You're crossing the battlefield into an overclock, into an Alexi overclock. At that, far easier said than done. Eventually, they shut it down, but at what cost? Raspberry Racers now throwing in an amplification matrix. They have a lot of tools. They're cut off from using it by a Blizzard. Cloud on the other side still continues to just rain hell from above. This Hanzo uncontested now should be able to clean up the rest of this fight. Raspberry Racers, your victors taking the series 3-0.
Yeah, Blizzard came down, but unfortunately, Raspberry Racers has had too much control on the off angles. Cloud paddling out towards 10 was entirely untouched by the May ultimate, and as a result is more than capable of being able to turn around and dispatch with anyone trying to just keep themselves on the card. And again, that is what Raspberry Racers were able to take full advantage of, forcing abilities and ultimates out too early from the side of play because of how problematic and vulnerable the composition that they've run is in terms of rotations. When I saw them pick Circuit, I thought to myself, oh no, they're going to try and Ryan Sim TV this, and it's going to have to work out the first time that they use it, and it's going to have to continue to work out the first time that they use it. Otherwise, Circuit Rail is just not going to go in their favor. It's too easy to be able to predict the pathing.
Yeah, it's difficult, but nevertheless, Raspberry Racers had the counterplay, not just with one comp, but with two. We saw Jay Carlin play 3 tanks across the series, which is honestly like, we gotta give him praise. That Sigma was solid. The Orisa looked great. Jaykaru has come to the table with a lot more flexibility than I think people give him credit for as of late. And it's put on a really strong performance that allowed Raspberry Race. Oh no, 4 tanks played the ball too. Yeah. Honestly, across the board, great stuff from Jaykaru and putting up some really impressive flexibility for somebody who was playing basically just 1 tank last season.
Yeah, really good trust as well from Raspberry Racers. It takes a lot from a team to be able to properly understand that maybe you don't want to throw an ultimate in because you're going to prioritize having it in the next fight, but it takes even more to throw an ultimate into a fight where you've essentially already won, but you're just trying to prioritize holding that position because you have that much trust in your DPS being able to come through, hit those shots, and properly make that positioning count. And that is something that we saw time and time again from this team. They prioritize holding those positions when they were on the defense, and time again, the entire team was able to really reap the rewards of those spaces where teams can just be entirely shut down off of the spacing a defensive team holds alone.
Yeah, and the rewards are plenty. I mean, a win is massive. And I feel like that's an understatement, right? When we're talking about Raspberry Racers and where they're sitting in the table, it means a ton to them. And honestly, I think we should just go ahead and talk to Jaykaru following this break about what he thinks about their big win.
Oh, hello! Fancy meeting you here. It's so nice to see ya. Are you ready to survive the wastelands? Then you'll need to bring your shotgun, your axe, and of course, your knife for your sharp wit, if you get my drift. Hey, whoa. Hold on there. Don't forget to pick up your Overwatch Contenders Junker Queen skin. Yeah, gearing up is as easy as connecting your Battle.net account to Twitch. And after that, watching the Overwatch Contender Summer Series will contribute to your drop progression, letting you claim your own wasteland-ready Overwatch Contenders Junker Queen skin. Oh, that's right. It's time to rampage. Now, get out there and slay with the Overwatch Contenders Junker Queen skin. Okay, take care now. See you in chat.
And welcome back, everybody. As promised, we got J-Caro in for an interview. J-Caro, first off, congrats on the win. I'm sure it feels really good to start climbing your way up that leaderboard. It's an important one for you guys, but it was claimed in, I think, an interesting fashion. You guys had not just interesting compositions, you played everything under the sun, not to mention the Sigma that came out at the end that looked really good, but also had some really incredible fight planning where, I mean, Mox and I caught you a million times winning fights through just the most ridiculous means. That notably... that push at the end of C on Circuit Royale where you guys ended up getting, what, 90% of C without actually having taken an elim the entire time? What's going into that? Who's calling those kind of ridiculous creative plays? The on-a-nade as well that we saw on the TP? Like, who's coming up with this stuff?
Honestly, it's just freestyle. It's just happening, you know? I don't think we're not talking too much about doing these in-depth plays. It just sort of happens. And I didn't even know about Andreko doing that flank for the nade, so he was just chilling. He just did it freestyle.
So obviously we're seeing a lot of teams in this region especially try to run this Reinhardt composition alongside the Symmetra, with SRP Check probably having the most success. Is there something you feel like that team is doing that's different to some of these other teams that's allowing them to actually find a lot more value with this composition?
I think the difference with SRP Check is that they've got Daned, and Daned has the Symmetra gene implanted in him, so he just can do things on Sim, which... I mean, the main thing with SRP Check is once you've killed one person, they will just trade, and then they're just back in the fight, like, instantly. Like, it seems like they have 5-second respawns or something. They're just instantly back in the fight, and you can never cleanly finish a fight unless you just invest too many ults than it's worth. I think that's the thing with SRP Check.
I mean, clearly you guys learned something from your engagement with SRP Check. What did you take coming into this match, knowing full well that you'd be playing into the Sim Ryan again? What did you learn? What did you try to adjust?
Well, honestly, I thought I'd only be playing Winston, but then I ended up playing 4 different heroes, so I guess it's being more confident in switching the sort of way I think about the game. So instead of because against Rush, normally when you're on Winston, you just play slow and you get Nano, and then when you have Nano, then you engage. But with Ball, you can just skip out the neutral completely and just go in and engage and try and win the fight off that.
Yeah, can I touch on that a bit further? We expect, obviously with last season playing with Wisp, having such an incredible performance on the Winston, being one of the best Winstons that we've got here. What was your expectation coming into the season, what you'd be playing? Because you've been pretty flexible, all things considered. Even the Sigma coming out, that looked, by all means, plenty good.
Yeah, I mean, right now the meta in AoE is just everyone's playing Winston, so I would expect I would just play Winston. But I do think the quality in EU contenders isn't as high, so it can allow you to just play Ball and get away with it. So, and then circuit is Sigma, so I'm like, if you're not playing Sigma on circuit, you're trolling, like how we were trolling in World Cup, only playing Monkey. But yeah, I want to be more to play more, because it's just kind of boring playing Winston all the time. I've been calling for a Ball meta for ages. Like, I really want to play Ball again, so I'm happy I got to show off a little bit of my Ball gameplay today.
So then, talking about another tank that you actually got to show off, when we saw TVNT actually pull out the Junker Queen, you want Orisa to be able to counter it. What does it change when you're running Orisa to be able to counter the Junker Queen in terms of how your team actually has to engage, as opposed to when you're running with the Winston?
Honestly, I think the Orisa was kind of sucked. I shouldn't have gone Orisa at that point. I don't think it actually counters the Queen. The main thing I went Orisa for was because they had Queen,
Rampage,
pass, break. They had like 3 different things, and a Curie. So it's bad for Ball, bad for Winston. It's like you can only really play like Ram, Queen, or Orisa, and I feel more comfortable on Orisa, so I just went Orisa.
Do you think we're going to see then a potential change up onto the Orisa if we see Contenders and Playoffs go on to the current live patch?
Yeah, I've been saying Orisa's low-key next up. That 50% fortified damage reduction is pretty good. I think it depends on the comp. Like, we've been trying out different Orisa comps and scrims and stuff, and there is one comp which I really like with Orisa. Maybe that might actually unironically be good, but we have to wait and see, I guess.
I mean, for you guys, the first step is making it to that future. Your strength of schedule is kind of opening up here. There's a lot of opportunity for you guys to pick up wins. What are the next couple days, the next couple of weeks of Contenders looking like?
Yeah, we've been sucking pretty hard the last 2 weeks.
I mean, you had a really tough schedule. I gotta.
We
Like
only
that
won
was one of the
game,
toughest
but-
starts anybody
He took
had.
a couple of maps. He took a map of EXO and
Yeah, but I
Twisted
mean, it's like
Minds.
it feels like we should be winning those games. Like we lose to ourselves essentially. It's we make mistakes, we do dumb stuff, and the whole like philosophy I wanted to have is to punish other people's dumb mistakes, but it's the other way around. But I think we're slowly gonna get like feeling each other. Like we only had like a few days scrims with each other before Contenders as well, so I'm feeling out the team, and I think we'll get used to each other at any minute now. I mean, today we were a lot better with our teamwork and our talking and our coordination, etc. So,
You know what's funny?
I'm happy looking forward. I think we'll qualify. We'll win most of our games next few weeks.
I think you have good things ahead. We talked to you at the beginning of last season when you were playing on Wisp, and you were saying the exact same thing about what makes you so successful. And you said you just did what the all teams do in your scrims, just punish everybody's dumb mistakes. And I think when you get to that point of coordination with a team, you really start to unlock it. And you guys are improving day after day. It'll be there in no time, J-Karu. Good luck with your next matches, man.
Thank you.
All right, Mox, that leads us with a little bit of standings to go over with our first round having been done for the day. We have had a couple of shift-ups, haven't we?
Yeah, a couple shift ups, but one thing that I'm sure everyone was expecting still holding steady. Twisted Minds again continuing an absolute dominant run of Contenders, the only team so far going undefeated as Ex-Oblivion are all going to be sitting themselves on a same, and SRP check as well, all going to be sitting themselves on a 6-1 scoreline.
Yeah, plus 20 is absurd. Plus 20 is ridiculous for Twisted
They're
Minds.
trying
but
to better themselves after last season.
honestly, there's not much bettering themselves that they can do, but we can better ourselves. We can get ourselves a better match. That 3-0 was fun. It was a good time. It was nice watching the creative play from Raspberry Racers, but there is another one on deck, and it looks just as close. Two teams who are neck and neck in the standings, and Ataraxia and Team Peps are coming up in just a bit. You guys aren't going to want to miss that one, so after this break, got that coming up.
You like solving problems. Problems like how to stop that tracer from deleting your backline. I know just what you're thinking. You'll bring a turret. But y'all can't solve all your problems by simply bringing an extra friend to the battlefield. For that, you need the Contenders Torbjorn skin. Solve your problems by connecting your Battle.net account to Twitch. After that, watching Overwatch Contenders Summer Series will contribute to your drops progress, letting you claim your Overwatch Contenders Torbjorn skin. Even your turret gets an upgrade. Warning, the Overwatch Contenders Torbjorn skin does not come with extra or upgraded turrets. Build instructions will not be provided. By picking Torbjorn, you waive a claim towards any destroyed turrets. No refunds, no exchanges, and no take-backsies.
Hello, fancy meeting you here. It's so nice to see ya. Are you ready to survive the wastelands? Then you'll need to bring your shotgun, your axe, and of course, your knife for your sharp wit, if you get my drift. Hey, whoa. Hold on there. Don't forget to pick up your Overwatch Contenders Junker Queen skin. Yeah, gearing up is as easy as connecting your Battle.net account to Twitch. And after that, watching the Overwatch Contender Summer Series will contribute to your drop progression, letting you claim your own wasteland-ready Overwatch Contenders Junker Queen skin. Oh, that's right. It's time to rampage. Now, get out there and slay with the Overwatch Contenders Junker Queen skin. Okay, take care now. See you in chat.
It's the heart and soul of our sport, where these players strive to become who they're truly meant to be.
No more break, it's time for action. Welcome to Overwatch Contenders.
And welcome back, everybody. We're hopping into our second match today. Ataraxia up against Team Pepsi to round things out. And honestly, I'd apologize for the long break if it didn't mean that Ataraxia was playing triple real close, going all the way to 5 maps in that series. They didn't take it, but credit where credit's due. What an impressive performance for a team that really needs them.
Yeah, it really is important for both of these teams at the moment, given their positionings in the standings, that they're able to find wins. And if not wins, that they're close matches, so that map differential at least allows them a better position to potentially be able to break into playoffs.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of concentricity around the middle of the board right now in EU Contenders. And so map differential is likely going to come into play when you're talking about being on the very edge there, because there's a lot of teams with matching score lines that have matching records that need to find some way to differentiate themselves. Notably, these two teams who are matching in virtually every single way. Both of them are coming off of a loss in recent time. But that being said, Peps took a tough one up against EXO, being 0-3'd by them earlier on.
Yeah, they may be matching in terms of that, but they're definitely not going to be matching in terms of compositions that they've been playing. Ataraxia have been having some weird compositions is probably the best way that I want to put it. A lot of Torbjorn coming through from them. So interesting to see whether or not that's going to be sticking around, or whether or not we're going to be seeing something a little bit different from them, given the performance that we saw from them yesterday, where they ran up against Raspberry Racers, as we can have a look and see what the updated standings is going to look at now that we do have the information on how those two games went down. Twistmind still sitting entirely undefeated at the top of the pack, but like you said, a lot of teams very much clustered around about the middle with a scoreline of 3 and 4, and so for a lot of these teams it's going to be very important that map differential is as clean as possibly can be.
I mean, look at that. -3, -3, -4, -5, -6, -4. Like, all those teams are all contending, and the line stops, the buck stops at number 8 there. So sheer cold currently are in, but let's be real, that's very much likely to change in the coming matches as things shake up. But this one, like we said, is the important one. And for Team Peps, I think it's a tricky match to play. Obviously, a team that has a lot that they're bringing. They're trying to bust this meta open. They're trying to play something different. They've brought that Torbjorn, like you said, to a lot of places. But I wouldn't put Peps outside of a similar vein. They're obviously not trying to break the meta in a lot of ways, but they're certainly playing to a lot of their comforts, especially with Molfig on that tank.
Yeah, definitely. We've seen a lot of Molfig Ramatra, a little bit as well of the hybrid Sombra, sometimes mixed in with the Sojourn. Naga has been breaking out the Echo, which is always a standout for his DPS performance, and that is going to have to be something that potentially we do see being countered by that Torbjorn turret. Right now, the fact that the Torbjorn turret really prioritizes who the Torbjorn tries to shoot at is going to have a lot easier time being able to deal not just with the Echo, but potentially with the Mercy pocket as well. So you can take the Mercy out of the way and then go for the DPS that normally accompanies that.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see how that swap actually changes a lot of things, right? Traditionally, the Torbjorn is okay into these rushes, right? Offers at least a lot of damage to throw at that tank should you need it. But it's usually teched in to try and play against these Winstons. Same goes for the Echo, right? You want to be throwing a lot of damage down onto these Winstons, but seeing as Team Peps are a team that likes to avoid it for the most part, right? Opting for the Diva, opting for the Sigma and the Ramatra where they can. It's going to be a little bit trickier for, I believe, Ataraxia to figure out how they want to apply their special picks.
We've seen a lot of Torgon from them. We've seen a little bit of Sombra too, so potentially they're going to try and break Mulfig's D.Va mech with the Sombra pick. It's always a really weird one, right? The D.Va gets a lot of just intel from where the Sombra is because of just the infinite ammo, so you have a really good avenue of being able to spy check. But the Sombra gets to absolutely drain the D.Va mech like it's a battery and supercharge up these EMPs, but again, it comes back to how mobile Team Peps' composition is going to be. If Naga is on the Echo, if Hybrid does decide to go on to something like the Sojourn, you're going to have to choose one particular target and everyone jumps them with an EMP rather than trying to hit full squad one and go.
A lot of opportunities here for counterplay, but let's take a look at the other side. Ataraxia is bringing a lot to the table in their own right. I know you were getting hyped about a potential Orisa meta coming up not too long from now. I think there's one person captaining that charge. Helve is ready and rearing to go, willing to bring out the Orisa on any given day, but that being said, if it comes in the future, it is certainly going to be a power pick for them. Lining up behind them, though, Lauren, Astor, Gala, and Natlox. Natlox especially shines for me in this roster and the versatility that they're going to be able to provide and what they're able to do to kind of solidify some of the weirder compositions that they bring to the table.
Yeah, I think Ataraxia, like you said, is a team that in the future is only going to be able to get stronger. So for them, they need to make it into the top 8, right? Whether or not we do actually see a patch change up, we don't yet know if we're going to be playing playoffs on the current patch or if it's going to be going for something a little bit closer to the live, which obviously has things like the Soldier, massive buff, but also that Orisa buff that we literally talked to Jkaru about after he was able to win, and he was saying that Orisa could be definitely one of those picks that does start to creep into some more of these compositions. And like you mentioned, Helve is probably going to be in EU the player that honestly benefits the most if we do see that Orisa patch go through onto Contenders. So for Ataraxia, it's all about the here and now. They have to be able to perform to be able to qualify into the top 8 so that they can properly take advantage of having such a major Orisa specialist in their ranks.
To start off on that performance, we're taking things over to Ilios to open things up. And this is certainly an interesting map, a map that has traditionally been fantastic for the current meta and all the teams that want to run Winston. But we've got two teams whose least favorite thing is doing exactly that. So I think it makes for an interesting shakeup. Any other day, I'd be like, oh, yeah, another Ilios pick. Good job, teams. Real creative. But now they've got my interest peaked. I want to know what they're cooking.
I mean, potentially the D.Va from Mulfig, right? We've seen dive still come through from some of these teams. If they don't want to run that Winston, they will run the D.Va. You have the boosters to be able to navigate around the environmental death pit. That is just slap bang in the middle of, well, Lighthouse too. If you're running that D.Va, you have a lot of movement to be able to navigate successfully between the low ground and the high ground to be able to properly apply pressure, not just to the enemy team's backline, but also to keep their DPS in check. And also, if we do see the Echo pick come through from Naga, I would be expecting it to occur on parts of this map in particular.
Oh yeah, I mean, Lighthouse has been kind of an echo spotting zone for some time now, but it's spread itself more and more across every map as we begin to see more teams shift their focus from tank to backline and the other way around as well, right? It's more matchup dependent. They want to be countering playstyles more than they want to be doing specific compositions. You have the opportunity to attack the backline or attack the front line, but when you've got players like Naga who bring that echo to the table, I really want to see us pressuring down tanks, and Helve especially needs to be not having much fun this game if Peps want to be in a good position.
Yeah, that is sort of the be-all of this echo, right? You have to try and identify one specific target and make them not be able to play Overwatch. It's a horrible thing to say, it's a horrible strategy to do, but it is genuinely the Echo's best bet. A lot of the time you want to try and go for those squishies purely because of just the damage burst that Echo has. A lot of the time you don't actually need to be able to act off of a dive. If your tank is just being a distraction, you've got an opening to be able to look for just primary into stickies, into laser beam, especially with a mercy pocket. Zap, bam, one person's gone and you move on to the next, but you can absolutely use the Echo to be a mosquito, a super powered mosquito, to be able to just keep these tanks in check.
Let us know what you think. Is Team Pep's gonna focusing beam Echo Ataraxia into Oblivion, or Ataraxia? Will they take some of that momentum from the strong match that they just had against Triple Esports and toss it Team Pep's way, seeing them unable to defeat them? Let us know. Like we said, it's a hyper-critical match to the standings for both of these teams. Map differential, the game win is massive for either of them. this really decides a lot.
Yeah, and honestly, figuring out what your opponent is going to run at you with also is going to decide a lot in control points. If you misread the composition that the enemy's going to run out with, a lot of the time you just have to throw the glove in for the first fight, go back, reset your composition, and that means you're going to be behind in terms of not just point per control, but also ultimate charge as well. So really glad to see that Pastor is going to be starting off strong, immediately sticking with this Torbjorn, anticipating an echo to come through, but it's not from Naga, it's from Hybrid.
Yeah, this is a little bit backwards considering what we're used to, but yeah, I think it makes perfect sense, right? Hybrid traditionally. Again, we don't see Tracer from Hybrid that often, so Hybrid's got a decent echo. Yes, Naga's is fantastic, but I think this is maybe a little bit more comfortable for what the team wants to do. Ilios well does, of course, welcome Monkey being the primary tank for either of these teams. It's kind of too good to pass up on this map in particular, but that won't, like you said, stop Pastor from teching in that Torbjorn, focusing down that Sombra immediately, kind of taking the teeth away from the dive initially by Ataraxia. Eps have been completely wounded on their first attempt.
Hybrid's not really being able to find the opening either. Lauren gets focused down, but immediately the counter dive is there from Held, and Team Peps just don't get an inroad.
They'll try again. They're looking for some sort of re-engage here, but Ataraxia are doing a great job of playing positionally around this Torbjorn and setting themselves up defensively after the first pick that they've gotten. Unfortunately, playing defensively has allowed Team Peps to come back in full strength with 5 members for what has been a pretty successful dive in taking down Gala, but not too much following that. Some great trades from the DPS line and the strong damage output of the Torbjorn allow Ataraxia to hold on to the point.
It's not just the strong damage output, it's also the defensive capability with that Torbjorn E, right? So even though, like you said, you lose Gala, everyone else from Ataraxia just has the sustainability to be able to keep themselves on the point, and Team Peps don't even manage to find a flip off of taking out that burst heal. As Gala will be coming into the nano boost, Kronos keeping lap, however, as we see the Mercy get hacked down, but no kill to come through just yet.
Things only get worse in theory for Team Peps, right? They're far ahead in nano boost charge, which should bode well for them, but if they allow the EMP to get up, things will get nasty. Team Peps wants to win this early with that nano boost. Gets it up, chucks it down onto Hybrid. Hybrid, oh, nearly. Only takes a quick drink. Let's get out scot-free. Dives in, I mean, valiantly to say the least, with the duplicate. Can land an anti-nade, but again,
no
follow-up just isn't there.
Yeah. I mean, it's such a tried trick that we've seen from these Echoes duplicating the Ana, but there's just no follow-up after such a good anti-nade, and now you're just being primaled off of the map.
Yeah, that's a sad one to see for Team Peps. Ataraxia have got them in their pocket right now and still have an EMP to boot. This is a strong map, to say the least, and a dominant one, to say what is probably accurate.
Into EMP, into Molten Core, as we're about to hit into overtime, and all they have to sustain themselves through and look for a fight is Primal Rage. This has to be absolutely perfect and knock at least 2 players into the well if Peps want to win off of this alone. And he's not even
if it even goes off. Yeah, I was gonna say, seems like a pretty likely target after Molten spent the jump past her with the nice follow-up. Ataraxia. I mean, what a starting map. What a statement. Up against Peps, you're starting to understand where that 2-3 that they just pulled off against Triple Esports came from. They are on a tear today.
So many times we've seen a nano-boosted Echo be the catalyst for just absolute decimation of backlines. But even though we see the nano boost come through from Kronos onto Hybrid to allow the Echo to close up the distance, find that really aggressive duplicate onto the Ana, which is played perfectly. It's just so disjointed from what the rest of the team are doing. And from that, their ultimate economy is just absolutely shot through. Team Peps just aren't ever able to fully find their footing afterwards. Ataraxia do such a good time just playing around the threat of the EMP, the Sombra hack, making it so hard for Morphic to actually be able to find any approach on the dive or follow through to create space for Hybrid. Something has to change for Lighthouse to go in Team Peps' favor, because they're running into the exact same thing.
Chat better hope it does. 64% of you voted for Team Peps. A lot of hopeful French people in the chat, Mox, but maybe a lot of disappointed ones after this first map. See, 8 seconds until this point unlocks, and already Team Peps are taking a pretty forward position on that point. Ataraxia allowing themselves to slowly make their way in once it unlocks, trying to set up afterwards and get that Torbjorn in place, most notably to give an Ana in the brig something to anchor behind.
Yeah, the problem is that it's not as easy as it is in WoW to set that Torbjorn tower up. Hybrid's been doing a really good job of taking it out early.
Yeah, Hybrid maintaining that high ground, making sure that the rotations aren't clean from Ataraxia, who are still basically all low because the only support up is Natlox, and now that's gone. Those health bars are far from permanent at this point. Peps has got a first fight, a first point tick, and a first win in the map to finally get comfortable in the match.
This is what they need. They need to be able to dispatch Ataraxia before this team is fully set up, because then they can deal with the Torbjorn turret as it's coming up and building into getting that bigger health pool, something that Hybrid and Naga are very quickly able to take off the table if they so much as look at it for more than 5 seconds. Duplicate's going to be there, but the Mercy isn't.
Oh, that's no bueno. A duplicate does give them another support for a moment. Hybrid eventually goes down after the anti-nade whiffs. Quick point tick here for Ataraxia. Should result in a fight win, but the trades from Naga. Hold up, Molfik's cooking something different here. Also has an Ana in his back pocket somehow. Cronus has gone around the trip around the world. Is there any response for Ataraxia? I don't think the spawns are going to come in nearly soon enough. No.
I think they were so busy trying to set past this Torbjorn turret up to keep Hybrid off of their backs, and unfortunately they just aren't able to contest the space that Team Peps are able to pick up.
And now that Nano Boost is online for Peps as well. Into the EMP, there is a strong retort from Ataraxia. Immediately gone into fruition. EMP not spent. Neither is the Molten Core. A lot of resources held here by Ataraxia, but they're not punished for it.
Come on, just a little bit more. No, Digo's gonna survive. The Mercy's too hard to take down, and as a result, Molfig with the jump pack is actually able to take Gala down, and Team Peps can rubber band back in.
The fortunate part for Ataraxia here is that they're at least getting point percentage in the meantime. The unfortunate thing is that they just lost a fight where they thought they were getting away with the fight, where they wouldn't have to spend any ults while Pep spent one, and instead now they're having to spend big because they're having to retake. They're playing down. This might become a more expensive fight than it was on the initial outlook, even if they win it.
EMP, Primal's already used. Rally now as a hack comes down onto Hybrid to stop the Echo from duplicating.
Aleo from Natlox gives them the sustain they need on point, but that Nano Boost needs to hit, and Gala does just get it off onto Helm, which should solidify this fight.
Should solidify the fight, but they also had to expend the Nano Boost. That is 4 for 5 ultimates in one fight invested from Ataraxia. Is, yeah, it may look amazing. Hack onto Hybrid so that he loses that airspace and you're able to take FD God and the Echo down. But unfortunately, you only have a Molten Core, at least it's zoning potential, to keep control of this point. But Hybrid holding onto that duplicate gets a full health replenish, and he's just gonna go threaten that point flip.
Well, they might do a little bit more than threaten if Ataraxia don't engage. They do, though. Eventually oblige to make the jump towards point, using the Molten Core to try and zone Peps off. But Peps are happy to not dive onto that point, instead diving onto the backline of Ataraxia, who fight back just that bit. Natlox takes down Molfig, no tank now. The defending team, the flip looks likely from Ataraxia.
Yeah, Duplicate went down onto the Torbjorn for the defensive capability so that you had enough health to be able to sustain into the ultimate. Ataraxia is still able to find the flip, as like you said, who is going to touch? Normally it would be Hybrid, but no! They get separated and taken down before they're within distance to actually tap onto the point during that little offset in coordination. Unfortunately, it results in no overtime.
This has been more than a strong map for Ataraxia. This has been a dominant one. This has been one that they were in control of the entire time. Even in the wins that Peps did get, it felt measured from Ataraxia. They were always getting something from it, whether it was ultimate economy, better positioning on the map, or a trade in the next fight. They were never coming out empty-handed.
The one time that we did see them stumble was where they went a little too overzealously to take some of those stagger picks onto Team Pep's side, and as a result had to throw 4 out of 5 ultimates into a fight. But they're still able to control that spacing, and as a result, Paso always has that setup that a Torbjorn needs. A defensive Torbjorn zoner is going to find way more value than a Torbjorn that's mid-rotation, because you have to set that turret up in a position yet again where you're potentially going to just get death dropped onto by a pocketed Echo before the turret can do its job and keep that DPS at an arm's length. Really good rotations coming through from Ataraxia, not just to be able to control the high ground, but the point and all of the side channels around it, so that Team Peps are never able to take full advantage of the fact that they have a Winston, an Echo, and a Tracer, all of whom should be able to find their own entrances into fights to be able to create space for the others. That never occurs because Ataraxia just have such a good grasp of the space.
Yeah, and I think the one being shut down the most has been the Echo. Hybrid was not able to get much of anything done, and it wasn't just that getting shut down because it was more than just an Echo. It was an Echo that was given a Mercy pocket virtually the entire time. So that is 2 players effectively being eliminated by 1 in that Torbjorn because, I mean, they had them in timeout. They were being put in a corner by Pastor on the Torb. It was lethal every single time, no matter how much they tried to fly around it. And so I think some whiteboard racing needs to be done right now. We need to come up with a little bit of a new plan because that Echo is not it. The focusing beam is not getting in and doing what you needed to do. The duplicates have been uneventful, to say the least. We need a lot more from that pick. And fortunately, I think Hybrid's a player that does bring a lot to the table, right? There are a million picks that Hybrid can bring out. We know there's versatility there within this team if they can just find the right tool for the job.
I think the problem that Peps ran into was they fell for the siren song that is, we can have an Echo and a Tracer at the same time. Because we know, like, in the past against certain other teams, they have played Naga on the Echo and Hybrid on the Sombra. And I don't know why they didn't run a counter Sombra. Maybe they were spooked away by the fact that the Torbjorn turret would be able to counter the Sombra too. But that just retraces back towards it's going to be countering the Tracer as well. Honestly, I would much rather have seen a counter Sombra because every single hack that was coming through from Ataraxia said is measured, calculated. We see Ana just being absolutely blitzed on the spot so quickly it feels like it's off of the back of an EMP, but it's literally just the natural hack because, again, it goes back to the fact that there's just no peel. The Mercy is always there with the Echo, and since the Echo is not finding the value, peeling for the Ana by creating a distraction, such a big focus drawn towards a player that your Ana gets a free pass to be able to play however she likes, however vulnerable she likes on the low ground, that she doesn't become targetable. That never gets set into motion. So moving forward, I'm hoping that we see a little bit more communication and coordination between those 2 separate pockets of Peps' game plan if they do decide to continue running this Echo.
Yeah, the dives have just got to be more concise, if nothing else, right? There's 3 targets you talked about, the Tracer, the Echo, the Monkey. You need to be finding that target, making sure they die instantly, because any time longer than you need to be around that Torbjorn while he's alive is time ill spent, right? It's a lot of damage you're eating when you're close to him. And in theory, the Winston Cop's fine, right? In theory, the Winston Cop has the burst to take down the Ana, take down the Brig effectively, but not quite if you're doing it a little bit too slow. You're going to pay the ultimate price. Being said, the ultimate price that time was a whole map being given the way of Ataraxia. The counter pick is Midtown from Team Peps to shift things up.
This should be a little bit easier for Team Peps, especially if they want to try to play towards that Echo. You're going to be able to just collapse over the choke instead of being stuck inside it. But you still have to be concerned about the defensive half, right? That's where the Torbjorn could potentially really come in and ruin your day. As again, there's just so much focus on chokes and low ground and being caught out if you take too long in your rotations. We saw it in the previous series. What happens if a team gets trapped in those rotations time and time again?
Makes you wonder which of these teams is going to be a bigger issue for. What do Ataraxia actually want to bring to the table? Are they set on this Winston pick? What were they running in their previous match up against Triple Esports? Molfig has the flexibility to bring to the table virtually anything, and Midtown is a pretty open map for the teams that want it to be. Is a question of what they think Peps are going to do as well. I mean, this game has been one of rock, paper, scissors largely. Granted, first map, I mean, Zelios were likely to get that Winston, but as we progress further into the series, the odds of these teams trying something different and then switching to counter one another time and time again is not unlikely.
Yeah, and the good news for Halv as well is like he doesn't really need to flex onto something like the D.Va because Pastor can play that Torbjorn. Normally you would say, okay, well, if you're running a Winston and you're having a hard time against an Echo, go something like the D.Va, but if you have a Torbjorn keeping that Echo in check, it opens up so much more space for your tank to just have such an easier time. As it is going to be Team Peps on the defense this time, and there's the flexibility that we wanted to see. Molfig is actually going to be going on the Ramatra, and this is actually a really good tank that I hugely prioritize on Midtown defenses. You think it's hard navigating through a choke and trying to find those rotations safely onto point? Throw in a slowing vortex that can split a team and really punish if a dive isn't well coordinated, and you have a Ramatra defense all bundled up.
Very dangerous. Being said, there's not too much poke, fortunately, for Ataraxia, so getting Gala and Natlocks in is maybe slightly easier for that reason, that they're not playing into a Hanzo, that those stray arrows aren't flying, but hacks will be aplenty. Ataraxia start that approach, though, setting up the Torbjorn turret, which, honestly, in its own right, just completely shuts down any hopes of a Somber flank from ever coming through from Peps.
There's one vortex he uses. Ataraxia try and put that support through back alley. Hack goes down to Halv, so he can't initiate in the jump, but They've still been able to make it through one rotation.
And how do Peps plan on shutting off this rotation? Molfig is nowhere near this side lane that's needed to shut it down when they go for it. Now he finally gets in position, and just in the nick of time as well. It looks like Ataraxia are just getting ready to move, but instead of rotate, they go for the dive from there. It's a really tricky position to posture from, and you see why most teams don't do it. It's an unsuccessful dive, but the smoke and mirrors that go up allow Ataraxia to reposition themselves all the way on point. Now Health has a quite powerful position all the way around this fire truck with Gala on the high ground, virtually uncontested on this Ana. This is a dream come true for Ataraxia, and a beautiful pump fake being made with that initial dive.
This is a dream come true for Ataraxia and a nightmare for Cronus' positioning. Every single time this Ana tries to look in, he's at risk of being antied and slapped.
Health threatening a dive, and EMP just completely nothing. Natlock's fortunately taken down. Molfig alone follows up on the EMP. I have no clue how Molfig was allowed to get on Natlock's and pass or why they were that close to him to begin with. But nevertheless, a win is a win, and an EMP walked into is an EMP walked into by Ataraxia.
Closes the distance, drops the vortex, goes in with the pummel. That's how good Ram is at tempo tanking, as Naga, with the Tracers, just denying Ataraxia these angles to be able to set these rotations safely up. Drops in the pulse bomb, doesn't find a kill, but still denies space. Oh, that's a Sombra found.
Could bite them in the butt here. The Sombra's found, which completely denies the hopes of an EMP play here by Lauren. Does get quickly back into position. They're looking for the Ana, and they don't catch her. They only catch Natlocks, who's kept up right. FD got down though for that EMP. Hybrid dropped Peps on the back foot here, but they've got plenty of damage, and Naga has been on a tear with this Tracer. Unfortunately, there's just nothing to pick up. Molfig does get over to a Mega Pack, but had to use the Nemesis form in order to do so.
Yeah, Cronus was actually able to send the Nano Boost onto Molfig before he got Primal juggled out of line of sight by Health, and as a result, Peps still have a tank and can still sustain on this point.
It feels like Ataraxia are choosing the wrong times to go for their engagements, if that makes sense, right? They tried to push right when the EMP came up, instead of staying back and pressuring when they had the better position, and then there they try to do the exact opposite, try to hold for too long while it's Team Peps who was on the back foot. Really tricky timings that they're trying to hit. This time it's not going well for them either. Naga trades their life for Gala, which is well worth it when you consider all the value that Ana was bringing to the table for Ataraxia. Now they're forced to use that rally early on in the fight and a Molten Core, and this is all just to hold the space. Molfig's very comfortable up here on this high ground. Is gonna have up an ultimate pretty soon as well, should they want to re-engage with it.
Yeah, they've got EMP. Peps can go into EMP, and Ataraxia have nothing to counter it.
And again, they try for an engagement while the EMP is up, basically walking into it.
Oh, the ultimate economy. It's so disheveled. Gala getting picked out as they sent Nano Boost. Such a Hail Mary of a play so that Ataraxia didn't have to just get stuck in a choke again without enough time to be able to rotate. Meant that they threw in so many ultimates though to try and cement that position on the point that Team Peps just are able to sustain through all of it, give one tick up, but then come back in with the EMP, and Ataraxia have nothing in the pocket beside an EMP to try and make this push work.
And it's difficult even landing that. Dive isn't there to follow up. The EMP came out from Lauren. I don't think it's going to do too much of anything, especially when you talk about the Annihilation being popped by Molfig. This shuts down the last of the push. Ataraxia have been cleaned on Midtown.
It's such an unfortunate position that you find yourself in as a team when you're running dive and you're going up against the Ramatra that isn't even really running the full Ramatra poke composition like you pointed out. They're running a sort of hybrid style of it, ironically enough, and it works perfectly because the Ramatra alongside the Ana have enough presence on the point to anchor it and stop Ataraxia from just being able to directly approach the point itself after that first initial push. They can't really find clean rotations because Hybrid, Naga, and even FD got to a point are just continuing to nip at their ankles and herd and shepherd them into these really rough spots so that those rotations are really long and costly and force you to be able to go after the backline, the true lifeline of this team of Kronos, but he's just always so hard and out of reach for that initial dive to come through. And as a result, Ataraxia, when they're actually able to break through those chokes and onto the point, they want to keep themselves situated on it. They want to be able to bunker up so they don't have to go through all that gauntlet yet again when they don't have enough time to be able to survive another push. And they just overinvest in terms of ultimates to try and make up for player absences. And as a result, they're just never able to recover. And it's a full hold from Peps.
Now the line in the sand's been drawn. Ataraxia have got to match that. They've got a very different composition, though. The dynamic has shifted massively with the inclusion of this Orisa. Now, the game is keeping Team Peps at arm's length.
Naga is going to be there on the Symmetra at the beginning. Might decide to actually stick on it.
The opposite of good.
Nope, there we go. Goes back to the spawn, picks up the Tracer. And without Lauren, this team can honestly just brute force their way onto point.
Back it up. Yeah, no, this is... I mean, this backline's interesting. I like the Kiriko map is
Oh, I don't
cool.
know.
Well, it's cool for like 5 seconds. Yeah, no, this map's over. Peps should be able to push this one through. That is if they're not too patient. They need to be quick. We gotta start jumping on the team that we just took 2 people away from. Team Peps, you gotta keep going forward. No, they've stopped up.
They can't.
They took a water break. They took a bathroom break at the fire truck when they absolutely couldn't. They were 5v3.
They got hit by a javelin from Helve, and as a result, they got stunned out of the initial aggression that they wanted to show on that point. Another stray javelin from Helve actually lands onto Kronos. And
oh my god.
That is going to be Team Peps getting stuck in choke.
Oh my goodness. Okay, don't get me wrong. Helve's good. Helve's been hitting these spears. There is like no excuse for dropping that one though.
Yeah.
Every advantage in the world.
I
a pick
agree.
literally walking out of spawn is handed to you, and then a backline pick immediately after. A fumbling of the bag for sure, but props to Helve for taking advantage of it.
Yeah, well, we're going to actually see Naga now swap onto that Mei to try to just give any agency to Molfix that when he closes the distance, you can wall someone up, you can isolate them, you can punish the fact that this Orisa is without a Lucius, so it's going to be slow to rotate. Problem is that Ataraxia have control of that choke. They're going to be able to have control of the point itself as well as Lauren setting up on the off angle for the EMP.
Poke already going down, pressuring Helve, like you said, has no real quick way of disengaging, but does have a fire truck to hide behind, and Gala to help get some kills. Gala, in their hands a little dirty, doesn't have a TP out. You're starting to wonder what the plan was there. This is the team now to follow. It's been a 1-for-1 trade. Still anchored behind Helve, though Ataraxia have a lot of tools to take this fight, and EMP, notably of them, shuts down Naga and Cronus and puts an end to things.
Ataraxia just making sure that Team Peps aren't able to find themselves comfortable. I like what Team Peps are doing, however. They're allowing Ataraxia to burn through ultimates, and then they're using one of their own. Molfik now with that position set up goes for the Annihilation to be able to keep himself safe, uses the shield, breaks through the Tourbillon turret, and now we should see Team Peps be able to push on to Ataraxia, who are missing players.
Nope.
But Lauren takes
they're
Hybrid
still missing a
down,
lot.
and Team Peps are going to be missing one of the crucial pieces of engagement. The EMP is not going to be available, and Ataraxia get a lifeline to be able to regroup.
Yeah, well, I think the big thing is just like Cronus and Naga take 9 years to walk back from spawn. It's quite a ways for an Ana and a Mei coming all the way from there, and so they're just not able to capitalize. Now 4 ultimates versus 4 ultimates, though. It's going to be a bit of a kitchen sink fight. Looking for another backline pick, isn't able to find it. But both teams holding all 4 ultimates holstered.
Terror Surge can be cancelled by the Sombra pretty easily, though. The problem is that Hybrid's not there.
Shots out, the ultimate cascade begins to come through. Ataraxia looking for an initial set of 2, and they both connect. The Molten Core, along with the Amplification Matrix, pair up beautifully on the small room.
We are about to have an overtime panic ultimate investment until FD God now goes on to the Lucio to try and ferry Team Peps to the point as quickly as possible. Lauren's literally just going to show up and try and poke and keep this team occupied so that Ataraxia get more time off of the clock.
Ultimate still lined up for Peps. This EMP has to hit from Hybrid. Hybrid jumping in, nearly gets spy checked. Is looking for a backline, can't find a solid EMP target. Is dropped low, forced to translocate out just before overtime. That buys time for Naga to go down. It's all falling apart for Peps. It seems so simple. All you had to get was 50% of a point A, but now it's Molfig alone on the point. Hybrid comes in and saves the day at the end, but a counter EMP from Lauren might just do it. Helve trying to one-up the tank on the opposing side. Naga coming in with a Hail Mary of a Blizzard. 1v2 versus the tank versus the supports is Helve. Just needs a miracle as the DPS stream on in. The sustain for Team Peps might have been just enough. That's one tick just a little bit more percentage. A Lucio streaming onto the point. A Blizzard to keep them off. Ataraxia have no way to take this one through. Gallic and TP in all they wish. But Peps squeak one across the finish line here on Midtown.
Oh, that is a big sigh of relief for a Peps fan, but it's not clean. Well, let's be honest, it's not clean. It's not a great showing for this team. It took them so long, so many rotations, so many angles that they tried to approach, all of which at every single turn were just shut down. A lot of it really just by outplayed with the Sombra from Lauren, but also Halve and Pasta just being an absolute menace. Gala, yes, sometimes over-aggressively taking fights on the Kiriko, but still keeping Team Paps sequestered up in these spaces where the Orisa is free, even without a Lucio speed boost, to be able to run the Ramatra down, use the Javelin when that Nemesis form is invoked, where the pummels aren't able to land onto those targets, and Annihilation isn't able to be supercharged up, so that Team Peps can't just use that one zoning ultimate from the Ramatra to be able to buy themselves so much percentage on point.
And again, this is a push that should have been over after the first fight. Not even the first fight. The first, like, engagement. The first steps out of spawn. This should have been Team Peps' map, but it took them quite a long time. Like you said, it wasn't clean, but a point's a point. And honestly, in a game that is turning into a dogfight like this one, I think Peps will take anything they can get.
Yeah, absolutely. You take whatever you can. It's not a draw, it's a Peps map, and that takes us up 1-1. But I think we're in for an incredibly scrappy series. I really do think we're in for an incredibly scrappy series between both of these two teams, because both of them just have vastly different play styles, which really clash quite insurmountably with each other, right? Pastor on that Tourbillon just slows down every single movement that Peps tried to make play, and then Peps, all they just need is one good fight to be able to put themselves onto that point and anchor and bunker up with that Ramatra Brawl composition, but they're only ever able to put themselves into that position once, and thank goodness for them, they have ultimates coming in to be able to stop any potential regroup that could have come through from the Ataraxia side.
That was a nicely played map, and honestly, I don't know what we're getting next. The next map pick, the compositions, it all feels up in the air. These teams have offered up so much. So you know what? We'll just spin the wheel, and when we come back, we'll have answers for you.
You like solving problems. Problems like how to stop that Tracer from deleting your backline. I know just what you're thinking. You'll bring a turret. But y'all can't solve all your problems by simply bringing an extra friend to the battlefield. For that, you need the Contenders Torbjorn skin. Solve your problems by connecting your Battle.net account to Twitch. After that, watching Overwatch Contenders Summer Series will contribute to your drops progress, letting you claim your Overwatch Contenders Torbjorn skin. Even your turret gets an upgrade. Warning, the Overwatch Contenders Torbjorn skin does not come with extra or upgraded turrets. Build instructions will not be provided. By picking Torbjorn, you waive a claim towards any destroyed turrets. No refunds, no exchanges, and no take-backsies.
Welcome back, everybody. We spun the wheel and it's kind of come up blank. Unfortunately, nobody's decided anything. We'll have a map in a couple seconds, but honestly, these teams feel like they can play anything under the sun at this point, at least in terms of not playing meta, because the Winston has been something that both of them have wanted to avoid as much as they can.
I mean, you can't really blame them, right? It feels like both of these teams don't really find the Winston to their strong point, and a lot of the time when we do talk to players in the interviews and say, like, why is so many people having trouble running the Winston, what we hear the most is that it's the hardest composition to actually be able to properly play purely because of how much coordination it requires. If everything isn't running absolutely perfectly, if your two DPS aren't on the exact same page of when to jump, who to jump, where to jump, that window of opportunity when the Winston actually makes that approach really quickly shuts, and you find yourself incredibly vulnerable because when the Winston jumps into an enemy team, the enemy team see it as opportunity number one to be able to go for the back line because one huge avenue of peel is going to be down.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky comp to execute on. And I think a lot of teams, especially in the EU, are recognizing, okay, look, we're having trouble playing up with the Winston composition. It creates a lot of matches that are very striated, very one-sided, very one team is consistently better than the other at this composition. So they're looking to the drawing board to try and change things up. And that's where we get kind of innovative teams like these, coming in with new tanks, coming in with new DPS, trying to find new ways, maybe not necessarily to hard counter things, but to work around them and offer up problems for those teams above them to solve, so that they can create some more nuance in their match than just kind of playing a Winston composition that they've consistently been losing on for some time now, you know?
It's always the sort of question of weighing up how much risk and reward is available.
Absolutely.
You want to play the composition that has the lowest amount of risk, the highest amount of reward. And the Winston composition has the highest amount of risk. So obviously, if you can run something else, you're going to be able to take that opportunity. But heading towards someone like Route 66, we could potentially see the Winston come through. It's definitely one of those where you want to be able to have a tank that can challenge the high ground, especially when you're trying as an attacking team to be able to move past that initial first corner of the payload. But we also see teams being able to circumvent that with something like a Diva.
That they might as we head over to Route 66. Couple of changes for these teams in terms of where they want to go, but compositions are likely to stay the same. There is, fortunately, I think for Peps, a fair bit of dive to be played here, as they've been the ones kind of hovering that Winston a bit more on health. Molfig's the big question mark here, though. Do we see that Diva come out?
Yeah, I think the big question mark as well is what DPS are we going to see if Peps do opt for the dive? Because you can just run the Tracer Sombra. You can run something like a hit scan to be able to take advantage of the high ground that we've talked about, or you can field towards something like the Echo, but you have to be pretty wary of the Echo, given how dominant Pasta was at being able to shut it down entirely with the Torbjorn on that first map.
Ready for battle.
Picks come in, Helv hovering, and Orisa walks out with it. Now things get exciting. Staying away from that Winston. Molfig hovering a Diva as well. The DPS line's all over the place. Hybrid hinting at a Hanzo. One that, I mean, we know Hybrid could do some real work with Mux.
Could be a hint, could purely just be to be able to use that Sonic for a little bit of early recon, purely because they're probably not really knowing what to expect from Ataraxia either. Whether or not it's going to be a super close hold towards train carriage, whether or not they're going to be holding towards tunnels, something like a May. If it is going to be an Orisa, or if it is going to be a dive, it's something you want to know as quickly as possible so you can formulate a game plan for what your DPS run with.
Attackers incoming.
DP out. Hybrid throws out that Sonic Arrow. Spots the team comp, and what are the swaps now? May, Lucio, Ram's coming back out. We're keeping this Hanzo on deck, though. Cronus swaps over as well to a Baptiste. So a full rush composition with a lot of damage behind it from Hybrid's Hanzo in particular. I think is going to offer up a lot of teeth and a lot more damage than even Hell might be able to handle.
It's not just that you have to worry about, it's also Lauren's position on that Sombra. The fact that you can get caught out by the arrows from the Hanzo in stealth, as well as just that immense pressure with the Storm arrows pushing onto this Orisa, who has such a huge hitbox.
Shots ring through, health force back. Heart now cleared the first corner already. We start to expect a little bit of contest earlier than this. You want to have an opportunity to hold that corner, but never did. Because they gave up that corner, they gave up this rotation as well. Ataraxia missed their opportunity to defend in a lot of ways. Peps now aggress onto the high ground, push the supports down, and yes, they're up one, but Ataraxia positionally aren't in a great place.
Yeah, the Orisa's too clunky. They don't want to give up the high ground because they know once health drops off of it, you're not going to be able to easily go back onto it. So as a result, they do hold on to the corner a little bit too long, and Team Peps are past it.
Peps now still have to aggress a little bit further towards the likes of Ataraxia, who have a corner to hide in. It may not be the initial one they were set up with. It's quickly running out of space. They're shoved further and further into it, compacted into a tiny cube is Natlocked by the hydraulic press that is right now Team Peps.
Lauren just
Now this
didn't have
battlefield,
EMP.
look at how separated all of Ataraxia is. I mean, Helv is light years away from Gala, Pastor, and Lauren. An EMP comes out, but I mean, that was desperation at best. Pastor's able to get one, but Peps are the only team that's actually grouped up as anything resembling a team at this moment.
We're gonna have Dragon Strike as
Wait,
well
what
from
is this?
Hybrid to be able to deal with the
What is
animatrix
this?
on that
Kitsune
one.
Rush.
As everyone just sort of backs
What is
up.
happening? Ataraxia is falling apart. Gala's, it is a miracle Gala got one there. But Ataraxia are playing as 5 players, each attempting to in turn go 5v1. This is absurd. And why is it working? Why is it working?
Team Peps not focusing the Orisa. They're trying to go for the squishy so that they can deal with the Orisa once the tank has lost its legs, and as a result, Helv just gets to cut through everybody. Now looked with the Amp Matrix has the sustainability to keep the tank healed up and the payload stuck in position, and Team Peps now have to approach yet again, but this time, even though they have ultimates to play with, Ataraxia have ults too.
I'm like stun locked from that last engagement. The EMP whiff, the Kitsune Rush whiffed, and then they still won.
And
Never
that's
in my life.
Before buffer Orisa patch.
Yeah, Team Peps though. Solid chance, same rotation around here, a lot of ultimates like you said. A Blizzard very well could catch them off. Zoning ultimate is first used by Ataraxia though, throwing down a Molten Core, and Annihilation is the answer to keep Molfig upright. Without an Immortality field as the Terror Surge is used, Helv shut down, so that's the large hurdle gotten over by Team Peps as they finally push this card over the line.
Not a full team kill. They are spy checking to make sure that Lauren's not able to contest as Gala is still in the air as well. Good Vortex. Keeps the Kiriko slowed down, so should be able to pick up the checkpoint. As Ataraxia now have a decision to make. Prioritize holding on high ground or try to challenge early to build up ultimates before your Kiriko's in the mix. It looks like they just want to exchange poke.
That'll go pretty well for the team that has that long-range damage coming in from the Torbjorn. Pastor's happy to trade around here with Ataraxia, at least until that cart makes some progress into B. The Peps is about staying alive as long as they can, making sure they get that consistent progress. Hybrid 70% now to an EMP. If Pep steps too far, yeah, they're going to walk right into the EMP from Lauren. Gala's there for the follow-up. Same goes for Helv, effectively turning this Orisa into a dive tank. The Peps have plenty of sustain to get through it. They remain upright. The dive pressure isn't enough. And yes, Helv looks like they're doing the right thing, diving in after the EMP, and they certainly are, but that doesn't mean that the Orisa is necessarily well-suited to doing so.
Yeah, unfortunately, when you close that distance, because you're looking to follow up on that EMP, you play into the Ramatra's melee and Nemesis from range. And as a result, Team Peps, with a little bit of sustain still on their side, are able to cut through any follow-up Ataraxia had, and now they don't really have any teeth to this next engagement. They've got the Kitsune Rush, they'll have an amplification matrix in the few, but Hybrid can just EMP to cancel it.
It is on Hybrid to hit that. It's easier said than done. Kitsune Rush out. Hybrid thinking about it. Steps forward. EMP onto 3. Pastor, Helv, and Gala are the targets being hunted by Peps. Fortunately, Molfig's traded out, so there's a solid chance. Oh, Naga got the Blizz eaten by the hack. Ugh. Just an ugly situation all around for Peps following Molfig going down, but nevertheless, they remain stalwart. They fight through. Naga being the pseudo-tank in Molfig's wake. Kronig bolstering that with an amplification matrix. They've found the tools from the rubble to build up what is a winning fight.
Yeah, it was literally just a tale of two amplification matrices. Natlox uses his to keep Ataraxia sustained, but the second that it runs out, Team Peps still have Cronus, like you said, with the amplification matrix, and even though they don't have the Blizzard, they've still got the Maze presence on the payload, and no one from Ataraxia can actively challenge it. Torbjorn and Sombra, unfortunately, aren't able to burst you down fast enough on an actual brawl fight. And Pastor will have the Molten Core health coming up to the Terror Surge in this next engagement, but Naga sees that Gala has gone onto the Zenyatta and chooses to go for the Genji to be able to approach the backline easier.
Lauren's trying to passive charge this EMP. It's taken a little bit too long, but maybe the move is too hasty now. because with the translocator being forced out, Peps know this is their moment to step forward to strike. They knock Helv down to half HP. It's going to take 2-3 seconds to get Helv back up. Now Lauren, yes, has made their way back into the backline, but Helv still in no state to step forward. Finally begins to reclaim space, but they've lost so much already that this EMP is going to be difficult to hit. They have to use the Terror Surge to set it up, and they do so beautifully.
It's 2 ultimates though thrown in, 2 ultimates that you could potentially have used to be able to zone the next proper push from Team Peps when Team Peps actually initiate in with an EMP and Annihilation of their own, and they have FD God Sound Barrier that they can use freely without having to worry about Lauren throwing in the Sombra ultimate and ripping all of the extra shielding away. The problem is they lose Hybrid. If they start losing players staggered from just approaching on spawn, Ataraxia are going to be able to charge up not just to Amplification Matrix, but to a Transcendence to keep Hybrid in check.
I mean, 35% a long way for Gala to go, considering that they basically have to shoot down lane. They don't have any quick way of garnering that ultimate charge. Peps should have an opportunity here. They're staring down Gala, but where's the follow-up? If they try to solo EMP onto that Zenyatta, even Natlox is going to be difficult. That's why they brought the Genji swap in, though, so they would have long-range follow-up to try and make sure that Hybrid's successful in that EMP, and they do make that work. Gala working around the back line, trying to get some sort of Transcendence charge up, but they have to be careful. This stagger is actually quite mean.
Oh, especially because Gala is the one that Ataraxia need to be able to live through not just Annihilation, but also the Blade and Amplification Matrix. If Ataraxia step away from any of this damage Team Peps can expert, this payload puts itself onto checkpoint.
Core out, zones Cronus away for just a little bit, but position here for Team Peps is quite nice. Gala 99% to a Transcendence, finally gets it up, pops it, but is it too little too late? Natlox went down. Once this Transcendence is gone, there are no more tools for Ataraxia. A Blade from Naga popped immediately after as he smells blood in the water, and it's blood he will receive. Maybe it's his own though. All drop go on the side lane. Terror Surge on Cart does maintain presence for Ataraxia, and that's maintained enough time for spawns to come back up for the defending team as well, holding Team Peps at bay just at the end.
Yeah, really good Terror Surge from Helv. Absolute saving grace, because like you said, Naga is just waiting, frothing at the mouth to be able to use the Blade the second that he baits out that Transcendence from Gala with Natlox going down early. But Natlox actually swaps off of the Baptiste onto the Kiriko to be able to avoid the Genji with the Blade trying to gatekeep those pesky storm doors. And as a result, Naga is not actually able to stop a successful regroup, and Helv has all of the sustainability, the confidence to be able to provide the Orisa ultimate and keep Peps off a point.
Peps now set with the task of defending. They set a strong distance. I will say, Root's not always one that you see finished every single time. I think this defense is more than dual, especially with the compositions they like to run. On the attacking side, playing into the high ground and such, you saw in point A the routing they had to take with that Ramatra just to get anything done. Well, I mean, on defense, in theory, it should be a fair bit easier for them to just set up at these corners, play with their high ground, set that Baptiste up nicely. Ataraxia, the onus is on them to successfully hit these dives while still running that Torbjorn.
Hybrid as well is actually going to be going on to the Ashe to be able to just zone off significant spaces. With the dynamite, you don't even need to be able to successfully peek the angle. You just lob the dynamite, ignite it, and that's going to significantly limit the line of sight that Gala has to be able to play into, keeping Helv up. And they're not even running the dive. They're going for the Orisa yet again. So high ground control, almost non-existent for this team pushing out of spawn.
Similar iteration to what we got on Midtown as well, when their defense was almost successful, running that double flex sport with the Kiriko and the Baptiste. It offers up a lot in terms of damage, in terms of healing, just raw stats, to be completely honest, but when it comes to reaching that backline of Team Peps, it's going to be very, very hard.
Well, we're now going to see the composition swaps come through.
Oh my God.
Understand that they're
Just
going
pick
to be
one,
lacking
please.
an inroad into the
I'm begging.
backline as Lauren's onto Echo.
This comp swap, I feel like, is solely to give me a headache more than anything else. They could have just stayed on the Winston earlier, but no. Nevertheless, comp swap comes through. Echo paired with the Tracer. It's a lot of damage from Wolfig to contend with, but for right now, they're doing a fantastic job of it.
Oh, there's just no one looking at Hybrid at the moment! Coach Gun forces the Tracer to reposition so you don't get chunked off the map into the dynamite immediately, topped off with a shot. You've already been able to chunk Natlox down too mid-super jump, who was trying to keep Lauren damage boosted up. Now we're going to see a little bit of contest. Both Gala and Lauren trying to take the Ashe off of the push, but the damage has been done. Team Peps are still able to keep Ataraxia stuffed up towards carriage.
A minute and a half taken off the clock in a close hold is more than I think any team is comfortable giving up in a situation like this. Even if Ataraxia get the win here, they're still coming up short. Great wall there as well. Save Molthig, extend this further. Helv then overextends because of that wall, waiting far too long, eating too much damage, waiting for it to go down. This is a sick close hold by Team Peps.
Yeah, and even if Ataraxia are able to just throw something like a nano-boosted Winston to try and clear space, Team Peps, because they've done so much damage, they've been able to build up ultimates, things like the Bob and the Blizzard, that they can literally throw into the fight to make sure Ataraxia don't get to move forward.
And they still can't move forward. I'm gonna be honest, Team Peps just look like a different team when they're on Ramatra. It is night and day for them when they're on this composition. Somebody make the meme, tweet it at us. Hashtag OWPathToPro.
Okay, Pasta onto the Hanzo now, has to try and find one of these one-shots. There you go, Joe. You get your request. There's the hashtag.
I need this like you versus the guy she told you not to worry about, but it's like Peps on anything else, Peps on Ramatra compositions, because it is crazy. They're so much more consistent with this. They're so much more organized. It's fantastic. Hybrid is locking it down back here. Cronus is letting nothing get done. Molthig's having a billion damage thrown at him, and it's but a flesh wound.
You didn't even need to pop Annihilation. Health Primal's past the Ramatra trying to find any space, any disruption to the backline so the ramp doesn't get to just sustain in the face of every single Ataraxia and Squishy. And they don't even need to use the ultimate. Now we're going to see a Hybrid cleared by the one shot from Pasta, and Nano Boost on to help to try and capitalize off of that one pick, as Peps finally showing some weakness.
I mean, 53 seconds left on a close hold is hardly what I would attribute to weakness, Mox, but I suppose it's the only sign that they're getting.
They bleed, they can be hit, they can go get sent back to spawn, but what they can do is hold on to
We got
ultimates.
60 meters more of Route 66 to go. I don't know if they're getting toppled over anytime soon.
Oh, I don't think they are, because they did the one smart thing that they could do in that situation when you lose players. They held on to Annihilation. They're going to have Blizzard in an overtime fight, and Ataraxia do not have a single ultimate they can use to peel for any aggression Pep show. It has to be an early pick from Pasta, but he's choked down by a T-God!
Yeah, I know. This is Pep's about a phenomenal pick for them. Ataraxia's choice, but Peps have made it their pick. Ataraxia swing back with a nice dive from Helv. Cronus gets shut down. Swaps prove worthy of attacking into this. They're still not done with this point A yet, and the overtime wick is extended by Molthig.
Still another fight, though. They have been able to sustain long enough to try to match ultimate economy with Team Peps, but it's not enough, Dor. It's another early pick that we have to see come through from them. They're pushing aggressively up to try and find just that, as Team Peps are coming into this contest with 4 ultimates and no reserve to hold on to any.
Not just 4 ultimates, but 4 zoning ultimates. 4 ultimates that push Ataraxia off of the cart. They're not just damage ultimates, they're area ultimates. Blizzard keeps them off, Annihilation keeps them off, Ant Matrix keeps them off. Like, every tool was perfectly suited to finishing that off, and it's no surprise. Peps set themselves up nicely with some good macro play early on, and what was a ridiculous full hold. And now they find themselves ahead in the series after what? We think back to map 1, Mox. I was saying that was dominant from Ataraxia. Map 1 was dominant from Ataraxia. They looked insane. They looked like they had Team Peps in a box, and now it's the other way around.
Yeah, because Peps had an absolute... We can't describe it anywhere else. Pixel perfect defense of it. A lot of the time we see teams try and go for that really aggressive train carriage hold, and it bites them in the back because it just means that they get decimated trying to run onto a team that have faster respawns, and even if they're able to find 1 kill, their ultimate economy isn't really that far ahead of the other team. But because they're able to just suffocate Ataraxia out of so much time, even when they start losing players, Ataraxia forced to 4 ultimates and just to be able to find any distance on that payload, Team Peps hold on because, like you said, the composition that they're running is absolutely amok. It is armed to the teeth with zoning ultimates. So even if you're losing distance, losing players, all you have to do is make sure that you take enough fights that Ataraxia burn themselves out of abilities and ultimates before we hit into overtime, that you're always going to have 1 extra contest and come in with every single ultimate primed, ready to go and take control of every single angle in 1 fell swoop. And there is nothing that Ataraxia can do to stop it.
It's difficult, and it doesn't get any easier. I mean, Herix touches all the time on the strength or the lack of relative strength of the pick of map when you head into number 4. And yes, I think there's a nice thing of, okay, virtually anywhere, if they want to go back to the Winston, they can do that. But there's not a bad map in the push pool for Peps, it feels, right? The Ramatra, Esperanza, New Queen Street, Colosseo, fine enough everywhere if they want to run it. If they don't want to run the Winston, they don't have to. Yes, generally considered, like, you go to Esperanza, you want to see the Winston, but between these two teams, I don't think that applies. I think what applies is Comfort, and Comfort says that you can run Ramatra on virtually every single one of these maps, and so the only way out is through for Ataraxia.
Yeah, I could see maybe a new Queen Street pick just so they can try and push this Torbjorn to the forefront again, because that is where they look the most strongest, where they're able to find value with the Torbjorn. Esperanza as well, pretty open for that Torbjorn pick purely because just a lot of spacing potential that there is there, like you said. However, it's not going to get any easier. Ramatra composition, if Peps are looking at how strong and dominant these Ramatra matchups have been, they're 100% going to just stick to these cannons, stick to pushing this Ramatra really aggressively into the faces of Ataraxia, and we're going to see an Esperanza pick being fielded, but the same problem being posed. Are we going to finally see an answer to that solution? Because it was not there on Route 66.
I mean, the fortunate part is that Esperanza is a more dynamic map. It plays more to that Winston, so you have more high ground to play with, more opportunity to kind of play the aggressor into a team Peps that is going to struggle a little bit with the scenery around here. Like I said, Ramatra can be played, but Esperanza is certainly one of the most Winston-centric maps that we have in the pool right now, and so there is even a chance that Peps themselves goes back to the Winston just because of the strength of the pick on this map.
Yeah, we could, like you said, potentially see it, even though like the Ramatra has been so dominant. They may just want to prioritize the Winston so that if Helve goes for a Winston and we do see that dive come through, Molf can match it. We're going to be able to see the high ground control for both of these teams because Ramatra doesn't have that ability to be able to fluidly move. He can fluidly move from range to melee, but he can't actively move his own physical body. And as a result, lacking that presence can sometimes really eat into the space that a lot of the rest of your team have to feel safe, especially on a place where your backline a lot of the time wants to position themselves on those high ground bridges so that they're pretty unreachable for the rest of the enemy team to actually be able to take advantage of. And if you don't run a Winston when the other team is running that Winston, that's next to impossible to be able to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, tensions are high, especially for Ataraxia, where so much is on the line. To understand that you're coming into a map where it's almost a rock, paper, scissors at the beginning, and where the first fight is so vital as it is on push, it's really tricky. They're going to have to approach this first fight with a lot of hesitation, so as to not position themselves wrong for the composition that does come out from Peps.
And that is the true danger of a composition like Dive, because sometimes you don't even really realize that one of your players is vulnerable and out of position until it's too late, and the Dive is really quickly just being able to pounce on them. There's a reason why when we talk to players, they say, yeah, we're going to be able to take advantage of other teams' stupid mistakes. That is essentially the name and game of Dive. If a team doesn't make a stupid mistake in terms of positioning, you force them to make one in terms of that. And the Ramatra composition, while it is brilliant at that poke phase and brilliant at being able to just steam run down some of these teams, it's not that good at properly being able to take advantage of those in the spur of the moment players where they are a little bit too far out of position from the rest of their team.
Said we expected some variance in the comps. That's exactly what we're getting. May Sombra coming out from Peps, something that they've been quite big fans of in recent memory, especially into the Winston compositions. It offers up a lot to the table. It's going to stop a lot of those dives. Their objective is to kind of sit here as long as they can and build up a lot of that charge. Ataraxia will do the same, though. If they're approaching correctly, they should be able to hold neutral for a long time here, build up that nano boost, and then look to engage with it. But it's a lot easier said than done, especially when you're talking about a team Peps that has so much lethality.
Halva's done nothing, by the way. He's been hacked, he's been trapped in Vortex, he hasn't been able to dive. Dal's been able to build up 21% of the nano, but Ataraxia just don't have any space as a result.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as long as Ataraxia can hold that back high ground, the bridge where you can see the Ana that Cronus is shooting at right now, that's the main part of the map that they need to maintain until they get a nano boost online. But that, I mean, short-lived is an understatement. They walled up to it. They walled up to it, Mox. Team Peps. Nah, they're just on one.
That's why you run the Mei. Especially in that first fight, because when you actually look at what the objective is, it's too wide to properly be able to take advantage of the Mei while being able to isolate the player out. They can simply walk around it. What you're able to take advantage of is boosting this Ramattra up into those harder to reach places so that Gala on the Ana doesn't get to find the safety. To be able to just use the face tank damage that Elf is taking to be able to build up the nano boost. It's so smart, and it means that Ataraxia is just denied one crucial avenue and Gala is denied high ground hold. He's gone.
Yeah, Gala's dead again. I mean, that's likely the fight. Peps, that had to be a set play from them in the previous fight. They've definitely practiced that. Gala looked like Gala was playing out of last week. I mean, the look of surprise on that on his face, my god.
You know, in the UK, we have a brand of apples called Galas, and it feels like he's just being picked like an apple from a tree at the moment, right? It's like Isaac Newton, the apple's just falling to the ground, and every single time Team Peps is discovering the Ana's position and taking him out.
See how long Gala can live this time. Time to kill has been surprisingly low for a composition that shouldn't, in theory, have that much gap closed, but Peps have proven us wrong twice now in that regard. Ataraxia, the team being dove upon time and time again, are nearly up onto an EMP, which could be the silver lining here, but getting that EMP into position is going to be so hard because the problem that every composition runs into on this map is that you have to attack into this high ground. And this high ground, even for a Winston, is tough to push into.
They've got the nano boost, but how before he can make the jump is hacked and it has to jump back to his team.
Oh, that's nano boost already? Oh, no! You hate that. You need that nano boost to attack the high ground, and it's just gone. It had to be used to save Helm. It's a difficult decision for Gala to make. They didn't want to just sit there and lose the monkey, but now pushing into that high ground again, it's nigh on impossible without an EMP or a nano boost. Unfortunately, they still have the former of those, but you would have loved both.
Where's the follow-up? That's the problem. You look at this from a hypothetical stance for Ataraxia. Lawrence got EMP, yes, but Team Peps have 1, 2, 3, 4 ultimates that they can use to be able to circumvent any follow-up, one of which being counter EMP that Hybrid might actually just take into his own hands and EMP before Ataraxia does.
I love how content Peps are to just sit here as well. FD got taken out by the EMP though, and all of a sudden Ataraxia have a solid chance of getting back in this one. It looked desperate considering the ultimate they were going into, but finding the Lucio was target numero uno for Ataraxia, and they got that done.
They've also swapped Gala off of the more vulnerable Ana and onto a Kiriko, where you're going to be a lot more mobile and able to hold your ground if you do get jumped upon by Hybrid looking to turn these fights into 1v1s and immediately take a support off the table, or just force out so much peel that Ataraxia essentially just lose too many resources to be able to stand up to Team Peps.
Now the fight gets harder though. That high ground advantage isn't there yet because the cart hasn't pushed far enough for it to be that way, so Peps have a 5-man aggression onto the high ground with zoning ult aplenty. So again, this high ground should rightfully be theirs. A nice ultimate from Help, though. A separate away Baptiste. Unfortunately, you're playing against against Sombra. And Sombra's a lot of fun to play against, especially for Winston's in Primal Rage. You can't hear the sarcasm in my voice. It's your own fault.
Peps have 5 ultimates still.
And this is just going to get worse. I love the understanding from Peps, though. They don't even have to win fights. They just have to sit here in this position and hold this high ground until 5 minutes have passed.
That is literally a rally propped from Ataraxia's side. After panicking from Molfig in Nemesis form running at them, Hybrid then uses the EMP to be able to capitalize on that moment, and Team Peps have just cleft open any coordination that Ataraxia might have been able to find themselves in, as Naga is holding on to the Blizzard. Health again gets hacked before he's able to find this space. Hybrid on this Sombra, like you said, is just making this Winston's life an absolute hellish experience.
You dive in, Kitsune rush out, and you're right in Blizzard. Sound barrier response. This should be Team Peps' fight through and through. They caught everybody in the Blizzard. The sound barrier saved everybody on Team Peps. It's flowchart gameplay from the team in white. There's so little that Ataraxia can do at this point in the game.
The one thing that Ataraxia can take advantage of is the fact that in that fight, Team Peps overlapped Amplification Matrix and Sound Barrier. As a result, Lauren doesn't have to go through the checklist that every Sombra traditionally has to go to when facing up against the Baptiste and the Lucio. You're shortened down to just hit the Baptiste, so Lamp isn't that.
Okay, sure. Right, like this fight, There isn't a checklist for EMP, but let's assume EMP wins the fight. Okay, then what? Peps are still gonna like come up with their next rotation. Naga goes down here. Wolfig to follow. It should be a win for Ataraxia. They connected with what they needed to connect with. We're taking down Molfig. Atlox did get traded, but the spawns are closer for Ataraxia. Peps are somehow fighting their way through this. They've holed up. This is ratty stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, they are cockroaches just refusing to die in this corner right now. And Ataraxia overextend into it. Oh, it's disaster. They've kidnapped the cart, but that's just not super important at this point in time. Peps don't need distance. Peps need time off the clock, and they're sucking it away bit by bit.
They need Natlox, but Natlox went down early and hasn't got sound barrier, and even got hacked as he came out of spawn, so he doesn't have the Lucio ultimate up to be able to counter EMP.
It's so ugly. 4 more up for Peps, and it's exactly what I said, right? You win with EMP, and then what? Peps come up with another 4 ultimates to just lock you in. Peps can afford to go fight for fight with you. You need to win 2 in a row, and that's the difficulty for Ataraxia, is they have the tools to win exactly 1 fight, but it's the second that's always going to get them. Peps extend their lead, spending both the support ultimates in it, and now look to move forward. They have an Annihilation and EMP to finish things off here. They want a full cap to put an exclamation point on this series, but Molfig goes down before the Annihilation can be popped. Hybrid spends the EMP before Molfig can follow up on it. Disaster for Team Peps. Now, this is what Ataraxia needed. The door is open. If they can clean this up without spending EMP and then spend EMP to win this next fight, now we're talking about something that they can actually build into a push.
They have to be careful that they don't lose players to Hybrid, though. Hybrid now does go down. Gala has that Kitsune Rush available, but Team Peps are still stalling with time.
God, you see that 1080 by FD God? It's like major bonus points.
Passes on the Tourbillon. This team has had enough of the Sombra and the Lucio.
More than okay. Like we said, they've got tools to keep this push going. The ultimate economy is finally swung back into at least a decent position for Ataraxia, but it's still not good because you're playing Reinhardt into the Blizzard, which is a recipe for getting frozen every single time. They've got to connect early with this EMP if they want to win. Wolfig has Annihilation in the back pocket should they need it. Thinks better of using it, but goes down before they could. Lauren traded out before they can pop the EMP, though now Ataraxia are missing a critical tool. They have to finish this fight off without the ultimate. It's only Elbow Grease they're working with, but that seems to be enough for now. With Cronus down and Naga basically just contesting the cart, there is plenty of play to be had for Ataraxia, and they still have the EMP to be the trump card in the next fight.
Yeah, Molfig went down. That was the crucial pick that Ataraxia were able to pick up, since without the Ramatra, there is no Annihilation, there is no punishment for Lauren not being there to be able to EMP. As Ataraxia still holding on, 1 fight to go before they're properly going to be able to take control of these early spawns, as Team Peps actually have to pull a little bit further back. Molfig gets hacked out by Lauren, who gives up the forward position for EMP to keep the Ramatra at bay a little bit longer, and now sets up in motion the ultimate.
Yeah, you don't need a forward position to EMP this, though. Because Peps are forced through a choke point no matter which way they go, the EMP is pretty free, but unfortunately the follow-up's not there. The wall from Molfig is beautiful. Oh my god, Naga helps save the team as well. The EMP completely whiffs, blocked, caught by Team Peps, and the counterpunch is just disgusting.
And this is the problem. Ataraxia were expecting the EMP to be big. They needed the EMP to be big. Without the EMP, they had no fight window. And now we're right back to ultimate economy, potentially swinging in the favor of Team Peps. Hybrid gets an early lamp to be able to keep himself up so that he has EMP in his pocket, but now he needs to hit Natlox with it to cancel out the impact of Sound Barrier.
It's now or never for Ataraxia to send us onto a map 5 or Team Peps to end it right here. Gala down, spells the ladder, health to follow. Victory lane is in sight for Team Peps as they race across the finish line. Naga being kept at arm's length away from this cart. All Ataraxia can do is just get straggle touches in, but Team Peps will be taking away the series 3-1. A phenomenally strong final map, and Esperanzas, they strong-arm their way through it. I mean, 5 minutes had to be ripped off the clock there, just by holding that one high ground and ultimate economy advantage. The macro play was immaculate from Peps.
The Maywell set play to make sure that the Ramatra is able to challenge that
I forgot
space
about that. Yeah, that was so
and
long ago,
run
but
onto
so
both
sick.
the Brig and the Ana. We talked about it in length before we
Look at
even
this.
started this game. It's so good!
Bro, Gala's just like, oh dear God.
It's so far the high ground. We have wolves. We have parkour. And Molfig has many, many punches to launch into your face. It's so good because from that one move, it's a domino effect. It really is. A butterfly just spreads its wings and denies Ataraxia any form of safety for that backline for 3 fights in a row, well past 3 fights in a row afterwards from that one move alone.
I was like, it's like 3-4. They pushed all the way to the end of the map, and then it just kept getting more awkwardly long. Like, the time factor that they ripped off with that snowball was just ridiculous. It basically won them the map in its own right. Finishing it off was a matter of just getting the ultimates countering. The last fight, though, was really good. Like I said, Molfig and Naga keeping the EMP at bay, managing to help a lot of the team avoid it so that the follow-up couldn't really get in, and making sure that the ultimate that should have kept the push going there for the opposing side didn't, was massive. It wasn't just the push in beginning. Honestly, their play throughout Esperanza was some of the best that we saw in the entire series, and I'm really glad to see it end on such a high note for Peps.
It's one that you have to watch out for, but I will say that Maywell with the Ramatra, while it was effective now, other teams...
You only get that once. You get that one time.
You get that one time. That one time where it works. And then every other team that you run into is now going to be expecting a Ramatra to just pop his head above the parapet and say hello.
Yeah, I'll take it. They cashed in there one time while I was lucky enough to be watching. I have no complaints,
I
Moggs.
promised
And you know
you a
what?
lack of Winston. I told you, come to EU. We have Reinhardt, we have Ramatra, we have Diva, we have Orisa.
This was great. I've had a fantastic time, Mox. I appreciate you having me, but I also know we're not quite done yet. We've got an interview coming up in just a bit where we can talk to these players a little bit about some of those fun comps they were playing.
Oh, hello! Fancy meeting you here. It's so nice to see ya. Are you ready to survive the wastelands? Then you'll need to bring your shotgun, your axe, and of course, your knife for your sharp wit, if you get my drift. Hey, whoa. Hold on there. Don't forget to pick up your Overwatch Contenders Junker Queen skin. Yeah, gearing up is as easy as connecting your Battle.net account to Twitch. And after that, watching the Overwatch Contender Summer Series will contribute to your drop progression, letting you claim your own wasteland-ready Overwatch Contenders Junker Queen skin. Oh, that's right. It's time to rampage. Now, get out there and slay with the Overwatch Contenders Junker Queen skin. Okay, take care now. See you in chat.
Hey, and welcome back, y'all. We've got an interview, and as promised, it's with one of the players from the winning team. We got Cronus in to talk a little bit about what was probably a pretty relaxing final map there for you. Let's start from the front and work our way back here with what we just saw. That Esperanza was one of the most dominant maps that I've seen in a minute. Obviously, we've seen teams full cap the map and like just run through in one push, but the way with which you guys just constricted them and sucked the life out of them on that Esperanza map, I don't think there was a single point where they ever had an ultimate economy advantage nor a positional advantage for like the entire thing. What locked in for you guys?
Well, we just identified the enemy team's weaknesses, right? They're a full counter dive team, right? So their strength is playing into dive, so we just rolled out the rush comp, and if they tried to go normal dive, we just win, you know?
So then, talking about just winning, even though they had a Sombra, it felt like every single EMP that they were able to find never really actually won them the fight. Do you find as a Lucio, you've sort of moved away from different ways of positioning for Sign Barrier now that EMP is expected to sit one person and just evaporate them, as opposed to going for the full team squad fight?
Yeah, going for like counter beats isn't that great, to be honest, for EMP. You'd rather like have a lamp or something. You'd rather just beat to keep you in the fight, the tempo, really. But yeah, just and like in Overwatch 1, you don't play Lucio the same. I'm not the Lucio player anyway. I don't really know. I mean,
fortunately, you had to just sit back and relax for some time there. What was it like having high ground the entire series? Was it straightforward? Was it something that was too difficult to hold into the Sombra sometimes? It seemed like you had no issues.
It's really easy because, I mean, they play Torp most of the maps, so no pressure on me. It's only a Sombra, and their Sombra Monkey can't kill me alone. You need the Tracer to follow up, and if they don't do it properly, we win.
So then, talking about that Tourbillon, it felt like the only map where the team really struggled was on that first control point where Pasta was running the Tourbillon and Hybrid wasn't finding the openings. On the Echo, was there a specific reason that you struggled with the Tourbillon on that map more than others?
Yeah, our dive's just not clean yet, so we're just like, our team is, we're trying to play like the meta comps, right, and we're focusing on that, getting good at dive for playoffs, you know? But for now we just play to our strengths for the rest of the series. But we want to play like dive and stuff more, it's more skilled.
Yeah, I mean, with your guys' standings, you talk about trying to pick up the wins before playoffs. Do you feel a little bit more comfortable with your standings after that win, or after the game earlier today up against EXO? How do you feel about your placement overall?
I mean, that win wasn't that important. We needed one of the other 3 games, so we lost like 3 games before this to Twisted, SRP Check, and X Oblivion. I think we needed one of those wins, but I mean, we can still get a good placement if we win the rest.
We saw you playing a couple of different supports as well, things like the Baptiste, the Ana. What do you feel has a better impact in terms of meta at the moment, given so many teams seem to try and pair Baptiste and Ana with a Ramatra?
I think the Ana is strictly better, to be honest, in most situations. I think Ana's just straight up better, but we're not like comfortable on it yet, so we just went comfort comp. But Ana just has some way more impact, and you can pocket people better.
And now that you guys are getting a little bit more comfortable, or at least you're settling into comfort comps to try and get some of these last wins and make sure you qualify and do all that, what do the upcoming weeks look like for you guys? Is it going to be more shifting of your composition, or are you going to try and settle in until that 2-week break?
Well, we're just going to keep practicing to get good at every comp, so we're basically uncounterable, right? We just want to get good at like every comp that matters in the meta. We're not just going to be like a rush one trick team, you know? It's not a way to win contenders.
Talking about ways to win contenders then, how do you plan on dealing with teams like Twisted Minds, who obviously have a very expansive composition where they can run both traditional meta but also flex onto things like the Pharah and the Echo?
I think the key is like Sombra. People don't really play Sombra much in Europe, so if we get a step ahead on that, we're good, you know.
Hey, I mean, Hybrid's been putting up good numbers. You guys have been putting up good numbers today. Congrats again on the win, man. A strong turnaround in the series, and then, like I said, a huge exclamation point to finish it off. So yeah, it's a real high note for you guys going into next week, and I wish you the best.
Yeah, thanks a lot, man.
All right, Mox, that doesn't leave us with much other than a few replays, some standings, a few thank yous, as well as I think maybe next week's schedule. I'm not sure if we have it quite yet, but nevertheless, it was a fun couple of matches today, wasn't it?
It was a fun couple of matches. It was some really dominant matches too that we got to see. Team Peps looking incredibly strong with some really close holds. Like that close hold on Route 66 might be one of the cleanest defenses of that map I've seen in a hot minute, definitely from the EU side of things. But talking about the EU side of things, I do believe we actually do have a schedule, or at least we can look back at today's schedule, because it was Raspberry Racers versus Play in that first match where Raspberry Racers found a 3-0 victory, and then this second match that we got to see, Ataraxia looking incredibly strong on that control point, but then Team Peps, when they turned away from the dive and they went for the more comfort picks, just found such a renewed footing.
It's interesting. These maps were very polarized in one way or the other. Raspberry Racers versus Play, every map ended up going kind of the full distance of the map. Both teams were very much attacking sided, and then Ataraxia and Team Peps came in, and both teams nearly full held Midtown, which was crazy. Looking forward, though, we do have more games coming up on July 24th. Raspberry Racers up against Team Peps to open things up. And then, of course, you guys get a first look at 04 Dash taking on Ataraxia, who we just got to witness.
That's going to be a really fun matchup. Raspberry Racers versus Team Peps. If either of those teams take us to Midtown, you know that we're going to be in for one slow burn, but I am 100% here to see how those teams interact, because it's also going to be some pretty important matches for both of those teams, right? When you're running middle of the pack, you need to be able to find these wins. You need to be able to keep that map differential as well under check as much as you possibly can, so that you can try and align yourself into a position of the top 8 and make it into playoffs, because we're getting real close to that cutoff.
Yeah, we're running out of time. I think next week, right when things start getting mission critical for these teams to find the success they need. Either way, it's been fun watching this with you guys. There's more matches next week, but there's also more matches today. North American Contenders is going on, so hit that subscribe button, hit the follow button wherever you might be. You can do that. We've got a schedule for you. Afterlife versus Rift is going on up first, followed by Wisp up against O3 Splash. Holy cow, that second one's going to be crazy. I'm bringing popcorn for that. I'm buying snacks for the whole family.
I'm going to be staying up late to watch it. It's probably, I'm hoping it's going to be a 5-map series. I'm going to be disappointed if it's not a 5-map series. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I want to go to bed at like 5 a.m. being like, oh man, wow, that was such a good game of Overwatch Contenders. Mostly so that skin drops as well, but also hype Overwatch for everyone to tune into.
There's going to be good stuff. Like I said, follow, subscribe, do what you can. Tweet at us on Twitter. Follow OWPath the Pro. Do everything you need to do. You guys know what's up. Be here for in a couple hours, and see you then.
You like solving problems. Problems like how to stop that tracer from deleting your backline. I know just what you're thinking. You'll bring a turret. But y'all can't solve all your problems by simply bringing an extra friend to the battlefield. For that, you need the Contenders Torbjorn skin. Solve your problems by connecting your Battle.net account to Twitch. After that, watching Overwatch Contenders Summer Series will contribute to your drops progress, letting you claim your Overwatch Contenders Torbjorn skin. Even your turret gets an upgrade. Warning, the Overwatch Contenders Torbjorn skin does not come with extra or upgraded turrets. Build instructions will not be provided. By picking Torbjorn, you waive a claim towards any destroyed turrets. No refunds, no exchanges, and no take-backsies.